Good evening and welcome to the San Bruno City Council regular meeting of May the 28th, 2024. Meeting has been called to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez? Here. Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Marty Medina?
Here.
Vice Mayor Salazar?
Here.
Mayor Rico Medina?
Here. Would you all please rise with me and as we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comments, how many slips do we have, please?
I have 3 speaker cards.
Okay. If you could please call the speakers up. Thank you.
I have David Nigel, followed by Wassam, followed by Corinne I apologize. Thank you.
Ready? Don't start the 3 minutes yet. David Nigel, a proud San Brunan since 1959, and 60 years of community service to our wonderful city. I personally know all of you and admire your strong commitment and steady dedication to our city. I know how hard you work because I know each and every one of you. I was so profoundly proud of our city council significant attendance at yesterday's Memorial Day observance at the Golden Gate National Cemetery and the warm greeting and sounding of the memorial bell by our wonderful mayor, Rico Medina. I was so proud to stand and salute during the playing of the Army's official song, which I served in for 6 years, having honorably served for 6 years. I'm not reading properly. Memorial Day is always so special to me. As a sophomore at the American High School, Manila, Philippines, my headmaster asked me to recite the Gettysburg Address at Camp Murphy Military Cemetery, Memorial Day, 1955, in front of Vice President Richard Nixon. Camp Murphy is a resting place and site for 53,000 American and Filipino soldiers. I thank you once again, along with many of my fellow San Brunans, for your accomplishments, countless hours and hard work, serving as our successful municipal leaders. One last note. It angers me that our Palestinian American citizens have directed harsh words towards you that are really unwarranted. And it is so disappointing that many, and some of them, do not even stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. As a military person, that angers me. I want to thank you once again and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Council. It is day 233 of an ongoing genocide, presented live stream to everybody. The whole world sees that it's a genocide and it's an uprising because of it. Our entire college universities are seeing this, and all of them are in an uprising because of this across the nation. The future of America sees that there's something terribly wrong with our government by funding and mishandling our tax dollars and funneling this genocide. The Palestinian community has come in here on every single council meeting to present to you, to tell you that we are requesting the city to take some sort of action to end this genocide. Yet this council has been silent. Mayor Medina, last council meeting you proclaimed a proclamation of faith, which I am 100% in support of, for every faith deserves one. But you decided to give this proclamation of faith to an individual who conflates Zionism with Judaism. And we are seeing what Zionism is doing today. You have also given this proclamation to that same individual who congratulated you on not passing a ceasefire resolution. Let that sink in for a moment. Someone who congratulated you for an ongoing genocide. The city says that this is not in its purview. A genocide is not in its purview. This is a humanitarian crisis. It is in every scope in your purview to stand up and do something and take action. These are our tax dollars, your tax dollars. Every single city member here's tax dollars is funding and enabling this genocide. How are we not doing anything? How are we not acting? Your inaction has been complicit in this time and time again. This is your legacy. You will forever be known as a council that did nothing during this time, during this horrific time in humanity. We proposed something, you denied it. We have welcomed you to give us another proposition. We have received nothing. What are you doing? What are you doing during this pivotal time in history?
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Karine Cramosini.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I didn't write anything down, but and I live here for many, many years here in San Bruno. Some of them let me know. I used to work at Roma's Deli. But the reason I'm really concerned is that San Mateo Avenue is really not looking good for either for people to go downtown or for the merchant. And I feel with the parking meters, I think that was a bad idea because people go to Millway or someplace else before they go here and have to pay the parking meter to get a sandwich or something. So I really would like to see San Mateo Avenue a nice place where people enjoy going. And that's all I have to say for now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and I do remember you making the sandwiches, so they were good. Next speaker, please.
I have no other speaker cards, but I believe Rebecca would like to speak.
Hi, City Council and City staff. I understand the parking meters are on the agenda, so I have requested to make a comment at that point. But right now, I would like to comment on, in September of 2023, I met with City Manager Alex McIntyre, and we discussed the parking issue as a whole. And at that time, we talked about a parking garage possibly coming in. The parking is an issue. It's not going away because you installed meters. So I'm hoping that some type of solution is still on the city's radar. I would also like to ask that the City Council refocus. In recent meetings of the City Council, the budget topics and the hot topics were talked about. One topic that a lot of the public had to comment on was the study of why people don't want to work in San Bruno. And after reviewing the last City Council's closed meeting notes and reading the public record of Lisa Clark versus the City of San Bruno, where an account manager whistle blew on misappropriation of funds and so forth from the interim CFO before the staff that we have here. And there's a case of ongoing retaliation. So I'm uncovering that that's the reason why a lot of people don't like to come and speak and come to these meetings or even address the city of San Bruno as a whole. When I first got here, people said, oh, I was like you. I had a lot of hopes and dreams for this town, but those were dissipated very quickly because nothing gets done here. And now I'm uncovering why, and it's very public. People just need to dig. I haven't been here most of this year because as I've seen my Palestinian community, people come here every day and tell you what's important to them. And just like some people don't even look at the people that speak to them, this is what happens. Our words are falling on deaf ears. There's public comment all day long about what the people here care about, and the city has shown what they care about. So I want to publicly also thank Marty Medina and Tom Hamilton because of the 5 members of the city council. They are the only 2 that are consistently dealing with the public. And from my knowledge, the city council are public servants, and you were elected to serve the public. So again, I'm so sorry for all of the heat that Tom and Marty are taking in regards to so many of the issues that we're having here in San Bruno. And I would like to ask that the other city council members, just like I emailed the 3 of you today, that you be more involved in actually engaging the public and coming to the town hall meetings when we invite you, because these issues are of the people. And from what I was told, that's what you're here to serve. So again, thank you to Marty and Tom for taking all the heat, to the staff that doesn't respond, that doesn't meet with the people, that doesn't even listen when we come up here. Week after week, I could be, I was gonna get dressed up to come here, and I thought, for what? You guys don't respect the public. So please, I ask that you respect us the way that we respect you.
Thank you. Is there any other speaker cards?
I have no other speaker card.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to announcements and presentations. There's only a couple, but before I get into them, the fire chief and I just, we rushed in we were at Portola Elementary, where we were listening to the public and the parents. As you may know, there was an incident that occurred up there when the sheriff's department was doing an exercise on their property, which is in the boundaries of San Bruno, with the tear gas. And so it was a town hall meeting with the sheriff's department. Myself and the fire chief went as long as we could, but having to rush back here. The meeting is still going on, and I'll get it updated once I hear more. And that was called by the school district and also the sheriff's department. And so I just wanted to let the public be aware about that meeting that's going on, that we are listening to and participating in. With that, item A, and I may have a follow-up from Marty on this, please. The San Bruno Lions Club will hold the 82nd Annual Posy Parade on Sunday, June 2nd, 2024. The Floral Parade for children will start at 11 a.m. on the San Mateo Avenue by Artichoke Joe's. The parade will follow the San Mateo Avenue South and will end at Mastick Avenue. Following the parade, there will be a post-parade activities and entertainment in the Mastick parking lot, which is adjacent to the Centennial Plaza. Easy to see because it's surrounded by the fencing, so it's right behind that. And then do you know by chance if there's the baseball game?
Yes.
And then there is, because if I don't mention that, I'll get in trouble, there is the traditional 8th grade baseball game that will be at Lara Field at City Park, and usually the time is 1 o'clock. The hot dogs or no?
Hot dogs will be served.
And hot dogs, the Lions tradition, they will be giving away the hot dogs and sodas to the kids after the parade at City Park. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Correction.
Okay. My
So-
apology.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
all good. So the parade this year ends in the parking lot.
Yes.
And at the parking lot is where there will be music and where all the participants will get the hot dogs, the drink, and the snack. And then when the baseball game starts at 1 o'clock, we will deliver hot dogs to all the players there. We've been in contact with the coaches. We're hoping they'll be able to have enough players to make the second team that they're looking at putting together. So we will serve hot dogs regardless. So that's a little minor correction.
Thank you. I was asking earlier, but hadn't gotten any update. Item B, on June 3rd, 2024, at 10 a.m., the city of San Bruno will raise the LGBT plus
flag in celebration of Pride Month. Members of the public are welcome to join to observe the ceremonial flag is raised. And it will be up in time for the 1st, but then we will be doing the ceremony and a proclamation that when we do proclamations, we reach out. Into this case, it's the San Mateo Commission, and they have sent a representative to accept the proclamation. And then also, Fire Chief, on June 3rd, 8:30 to 11? The pancake breakfast? The time? Okay. All right, so there's a pancake breakfast at the firehouse. I had it in my bag. And so it is done by the association, Fire Association, and so that is their traditional. And that will be 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., and that will be at the fire station on El Camino Real. With that, any speaker cards?
I have no speaker cards.
Okay, now we'll move on under consent. Item 6. All items are considered routine or implemented by an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. There will be a single public comment period for items in this section unless a council member requests to pull an item for a separate vote. Anything to pull for separate? Anything for discussion or comments? Any speaker cards?
I have no speaker cards.
Back to the board for action.
Move to approve all items on consent.
Second. Motion Hamilton, second Salazar to approve all consent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 7, public hearing. City Clerk.
Item 7A, hold public hearing and consider taking the following actions to approve the Crestmore residential project at 300 Piedmont Avenue, adopt a resolution certifying a final environmental impact report and adopting a mitigation monitoring and reporting program, CEQA findings, and a statement of overriding considerations, and adopt a resolution amending the general planned land use designation for the dedicated portion of APN 019-170-020 to change it from low-density residential to open space, amend other provisions contained in the general plan regarding the preservation of open space and playing fields at the Crestmore site, and rescind City Council Resolution Number 2022-04 GPA 24-001, and introduce read by title only and waive further reading of an ordinance amending the zoning map to rezone the dedication portion of APN 019-170-020, approximately 6.91 acres from single-family residential district R1 to open space and conservation district O, ZC 24-001, and adopt a resolution conditionally approving a vesting tentative tract map, planned unit permit, architectural review permit, density bonus request, affordable housing plan, and tree removal permit to construct a residential subdivision with 155 homes at 300 Piedmont Avenue, TM 22-001, PUP 22-001, AR 22-006, DB 24-001.
Thank you very much for reading that. And I'll turn to Councilmember Hamilton.
So because the subject property is within 1,000 feet of my home, I am prohibited by law from participating in this item, and I am going to be recused. So I'll see you in a bit.
And with this, it is a public hearing. We're going to receive 2 presentations, first from staff, second from the applicant. Then I'm going to ask for any questions from council on the specifics and information that has been presented to us. Then I'm going to open it for any public hearing. Then we're going to bring it back to City Council for discussion, comments, and or action. And with that, turn it over to city staff.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council, Michael Smith, Planning Department staff. Tonight's item is for the Crestmore residential project at 300 Piedmont Avenue. Sorry. So tonight's agenda is we're going to start off with the objective for the meeting, the background on the project and how we got here, and the analysis for the project, and we'll wrap it up with staff recommendation. So the objective for tonight's meeting is to review and certify an EIR, review and approve general plan amendments, approve an amendment to the zoning map, and review and approve entitlement requests for the project itself, 300 Piedmont Avenue. So we'll start off with the background for the project. So the San Mateo Union High School District owns the 40-plus acre site located at 300 Piedmont Avenue. The property is accessed from Piedmont Avenue to the south and Cortland Drive to the north. Existing single-family subdivisions neighbor the project site to the north, west, and south across significant grade changes with a sloped and wooded hillside buffer that will remain in place. The general plan land use for the site is low-density residential, and the zoning for the site is single-family residential, which is R1. The property was operated as a high school from 1962 through 1980. The high school campus is currently vacant, but the district currently leases the playing fields on a short-term basis to AYSO and low-end soccer clubs for youth soccer games and practices. And these are a few photos of the site on the screen. So on January 11th of 2022, City Council adopted resolution number 2022-04, stating that general plan, open space, and recreation policy OSR-8 requires dedication of approximately 12 acres of playing fields at the former Crestmore High School site. The district raised legal objections to the resolution both prior to and following the meeting. In response to the district's objection, on November 18th of 2022, the city and the district entered into a settlement agreement, which stipulates the amount of land to be dedicated to the city for playing fields and supportive uses, among other terms, and it also included a conceptual plan for the project. Pursuant to the terms of the settlement agreement, on December 13th of 2022, the City Council initiated a general plan amendment for the dedicated land. The settlement agreement states that the city rescind resolution number 2022-04 regarding general plan policy OSR-8. You can find these general plan amendments in the general plan amendment resolution attached to the staff report. The purpose of the amendments is to make the open space totals for the Crestmore site conform to the settlement agreement, which are reflected in the project itself. The settlement agreement also contemplates the amount of land to be dedicated to the city and the location of the bioretention facility on the dedicated land. So the district has entered into a purchase and sale agreement with, to sell the property to Summerhill Homes. And Summerhill is proposing to construct a residential subdivision with 155 single-family homes on approximately 3,000 square foot lots. 24 of those homes would be affordable units, which is slightly more than the 15% that's required by the city's ordinance. The project requires many planning approvals, which are listed above. The primary ones are the vesting tentative tract map and the planned unit permit. Council approval is required because the project includes general plan and zoning map amendments for the dedicated land. Summerhill's site plan follows conceptual plan from the settlement agreement, which clusters the homes to minimize grading on the site and preserve the open space. This allows for the dedication of 6.91 acres of open space uses to the city, of which 5.3 acres is for future park intended for recreational fields. The land would be rough graded prior to acceptance by the city, and the city will be responsible for constructing the future facilities on that site. The project includes an additional 12.29 acres of privately owned forested area to be maintained by the HOA of the subdivision. In total, 19.2 acres of land, nearly 50% of the original site, will be maintained as open space. In anticipation of the land dedication in January of 2023, the city engaged Callender and Associates to facilitate community engagement around a master planning process for the recreational fields at the site. Above is an image of the final master plan design. While the funding and timing of the master plan and its construction is an issue the City Council will decide upon in the future, it is not a subject of tonight's agenda item, which is about the land use decisions for the property itself. Also, a bit of background, the Planning Commission considered this project at their meeting early this month on May 7th, at which time the Commission adopted 3 resolutions recommending Council certify the EIR, approve the project entitlements, and approve the city-initiated general plan amendment and zoning map amendment. So now we'll get into the analysis for the project. So the applicant is requesting a vesting tentative tract map to subdivide the 40-plus acre site into 171 different parcels. 155 of those parcels are for the proposed single-family homes in the subdivision. The remaining parcels are for open space and streets. The Cortland and Piedmont will become a public street going through the site, and the streets internal to the subdivision will be private. The applicant is proposing to redevelop the site using the planned unit permit process, otherwise known as the PUP. And this allows for clustering of residential units on smaller lots with reduced setbacks in order to preserve open space elsewhere on the lot, especially for lots that are difficult to develop with a lot of slope. PUP requirements state for each square foot of land gained, implementing smaller lots, an equal amount of usable land must be retained as open space. And this project exceeds that requirement. The project would also utilize reduced setbacks as permitted by the PUP process. And the image on this slide shows a typical plotting plan for the development, illustrating typical setbacks. The project also requires an architectural review permit. This is on the slide here is a typical collection of elevations for neighborhood 2 in the development. There are 21 different exterior elevations within the subdivision. All front yards will be landscaped, and homeowners will be responsible for landscaping the rear yards. This is a typical collection of elevations for neighborhood 1, where the homes are slightly larger. The neighborhoods are tied together through application of similar color palettes, materials, scale, and building forms. The commission has reviewed the architecture and it supports the design. The preliminary affordable housing plan is attached to the staff report and would be approved with the project. The applicant is providing one more moderate income unit than what is required by our code. Units will be deed restricted for a period of 55 years, and they'll be mixed throughout the project, and indistinguishable from the market rate units within the development. And these units will be the city's first for-sale affordable housing units. The project is also seeking a density bonus concession, and that is because it is providing at least 10% moderate income units on the site, and that allows it to at least one concession, and so they are seeking a concession for the undergrounding of utilities, and specifically the utilities at the Cortland frontage entrance to the site, and those are the lines that you see that go above the street, and they're about for a span of about 100 to 200 feet. This slide presents the changes in land use designation for the dedicated property. On the left is the existing general plan land use, and that's being amended for the dedicated land, and that would go from the current low-density residential to open space, and that's what's shown in green. And then along with that is the zoning amendment, which is also being initiated by the city. And so for the zoning amendment, the site would be rezoned to open space from its current R1 single-family district. Both the general plan and zoning map amendments are consistent with the terms of the settlement agreement between the city and the district. So now I'm going to go over the environmental review for the project. So the purpose of environmental review is to provide information to decision makers. You're required to mitigate any impacts that are found where you can. Public participation in the process is required. There are specific steps which must be followed as part of the EIR preparation, which is outlined on this slide, beginning with the notice of preparation and scoping meeting. Public comment received on the draft EIR is attached to and addressed in the final EIR, which is attached to the staff report. This includes comments from outside agencies. Here's a list of all the topics, areas that were analyzed as part of the environmental review process. These categories are required by environmental law. So in the EIR analysis, it identified construction and operation-related impacts that could be mitigated to less than significant levels. And for those impacts, a mitigation monitoring and reporting program was prepared. The analysis also showed that a significant and unavoidable impact was related to greenhouse gas emissions associated with vehicle miles travels, otherwise known as VMT. Therefore, an environmental impact report was prepared to analyze that impact. The impact is primarily as a result of where the site is located, which is not near any transit or services, as shown on this transit map on the slide. In order to meet the state's greenhouse gas emissions target, VMT for a project must be 15% below the regional average, which is currently 14.6 vehicle miles traveled for the region. The project is estimated to generate 14.7 vehicle miles traveled, which is about the regional average, but still above the threshold for significance. The applicant is required to develop and implement a TDM marketing program that will be implemented by the HOA, which encourages alternative modes of transit for residents in the neighborhood. But even such a program would not reduce the VMT to less than significant. But it's important to note that almost any housing development on this site would have triggered this EIR for greenhouse gases. So when you prepare an EIR, you're also required to look at alternatives, including a no project alternative. Two other alternatives were evaluated in the project, in the EIR. One was for more density, and the other one was for less density. All alternatives were considered but rejected, and those are further described in the EIR. So at the Planning Commission hearing, members of the public raised concerns about traffic, and while traffic is no longer a metric that needs to be analyzed under CEQA, since they've gone to VMT, the EIR did analyze intersections near the site for traffic control and found the intersection, which you see on the screen here, at Piedmont and Madison Avenues, could use a new stop sign to address a restricted view intersection. And that stop sign requirement is included as a condition of approval on the project. So when an EIR is prepared and alternatives are evaluated, the decision makers can still adopt the project, but to do so, they need to adopt a statement of overriding considerations, which is included with the CEQA findings, which are attached to the staff report. But briefly, those overriding considerations include 1, general plan implementation, develop an underutilized school site, 2, neighborhood safety, vegetation management of the hillside that is behind the homes on Madison. 3, housing development. The project would provide 155 housing units to the city's housing stock, including 24 BMR units. And lastly, recreational facilities. The project would preserve existing recreational space on the site. So staff received several public comments in response to the public notice that was distributed to for the project. All written comments have been attached to the staff report before you for reference. Additionally, several members of the public spoke for and against the project at the Planning Commission meeting. By and large, those who spoke against the project were concerned about the displacement of the youth soccer clubs that currently use the fields and the plan to accommodate them elsewhere. And as I noted earlier, this agenda item is about the land use decisions for the housing project that is before you. The topic of the park construction or other issues related to the soccer clubs is not part of this agenda item tonight. If this project is approved, staff will bring forward an update to City Council on the park issues later this year. And this brings me to the staff recommendation for tonight. So staff's recommendation is to approve the project as read by the clerk regarding the EIR, the general plan amendments, the zoning map amendment, and the project's entitlements. And this concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you have.
Thank you. Do you want the questions now, or would you like to wait until after the applicant?
It's totally up to you.
All right, why don't we go ahead and have the applicant come forward?
Can somebody tee up?
This one.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Mayor Medina, Vice Mayor Salazar, and City Council members. My name is Elaine Breeze. I'm joined tonight by my Summerhill colleagues, as well as our project team. Summerhill Homes is a privately owned home building developer developing communities of distinction throughout the Bay Area. We've been working in San Bruno for more than 20 years, and the 300 Piedmont Avenue project is our 4th community here in the city. We appreciate all the hard work from the San Bruno City staff, support from the high school district, the unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission, and the feedback we've received from the neighbors and the San Bruno community at large as our plan for this unique site has evolved over the last 2.5 years. I will provide an overview of our planning approach and project plans, and our architect, Jill Williams of KTGY Architects, will present the home designs. Our project's applicant statement provided additional detail. Next, please. Our process to develop the project before you this evening has been complex, comprehensive, and collaborative beginning in 2021. Next, please. It has involved multiple submittals and many meetings with staff, commissions, and community stakeholders during this time. Next, please. Next, please. Staff provide an overview of the site itself. I just want to point out that the existing roadway running through the site is a private road currently with the public access easement and does not meet city standards. Next, please. So our planning approach was to utilize Summerhill's 20 years of experience here in San Bruno developing communities of distinction. Our Marisol project, Marymount Skyline Ridge, to be consistent with the city's general plan, zoning, and utilize your planned unit permit ordinance to preserve open space, be consistent with the surrounding single-family detached neighborhood, provide public open space land for recreation to the San Bruno community, preserve the natural open space slopes, incorporate neighborhood feedback that we receive from our community meetings. Next, please. So as staff described, our community is broken up into 2 neighborhoods, and we took the feedback that we learned from our previous San Bruno projects as we designed the 300 Piedmont Avenue site plan, including providing sidewalks on both sides of the streets, 2-car driveway aprons with 2-car garages, parking on one side of the street, preserving open space, and providing play space. The project will dedicate 6.9 acres of public open space land at no cost to the city. This includes 5.3 acres intended for playing fields and 1.6 acres intended for recreational supportive uses. Summerhill will rough grade the dedicated area, and the city will construct any additional improvements. We worked with staff to develop this plan to illustrate the dedicated area along Cortland with head-in parking for the fields and a walking path. The Cortland frontage along the side with new homes will be unique. Instead of a 5-foot sidewalk typical in San Bruno, we will have a 7-foot wide sidewalk with street trees in tree wells placed at the curb, which will enhance aesthetics and result in traffic calming to the street. Nearly 250 new trees will be planted throughout the community. And what you can't see in this plan are the 24 below market rate homes that are spread throughout the community, as staff describes, and I will detail later. Next, please. Some of our project benefits for the project will include, as described, 155 single-family detached homes that are compatible with the surrounding Crestmore neighborhood. They're all family-sized with 4-bedroom floor plans. We're preserving half of the site of open space, including the dedicated public open space, publicly accessible private open space, and private open space. We're providing 24 4-bedroom below market rate homes for low and moderate income families. Next, please. The site currently does not generate any property taxes, so we estimate that the homes will generate approximately $3 million per year in property taxes, with approximately $400,000 to the city of San Bruno annually. We'll be paying $4.9 million in development impact fees to the city, and then an additional $1.9 million to San Bruno Park and San Mateo Union High School districts. And then lastly, proceeds from the sale of this project to the district are anticipated to fund much needed housing for their district teachers and staff. Next, please. So the enhanced streetscape that I described is here. This is an enlargement, includes the wider sidewalks and street trees along New Cortland Drive. We will also enhance front yards facing the future head-in parking with an open split rail fence and increased landscaping. This plan also shows how the house plans relate to one another throughout the project. Each plan has a notch in the rear to provide outdoor living space, and the homes are typically staggered to maximize separation and privacy between the neighbors. Next, please. This is a view of our neighborhood tot lot. It will include 2 different play areas, a grass area, and other amenities. Next, please. And there will be a play structure for ages 2 through 5 and 5 through 12 with seating and bike amenities. This decorative street light on the right will be located along all private streets. Next, please. This is the more passive neighborhood community space featuring architectural landscaping and seating, and this plan shows how the individual lots will be configured along the street with a sidewalk, 2-car driveway, front yard landscaping, and trees. Porches and living spaces are pulled forward, minimizing the appearance of garages and providing a pedestrian-friendly street scene. Next, please. A variety of fence designs will provide architectural interest along the streets, as well as take advantage of views from the site. We have been working with the San Bruno Chinese Church since 2022, which is across the street, regarding title issues in order to preserve their access, and Summerhill will be installing new gates, fencing, and a sign for the church. Next, please. During our process, we hosted 2 neighborhood meetings inviting more than 500 residents, and we also met individually with residents of Piedmont Avenue, Madison Avenue, and Keefe Court, and appreciate the local knowledge that they shared. Questions included maintenance of the existing slopes, soil stability, stormwater flow, and traffic. Regarding the existing slopes, we will implement a vegetation management plan in coordination with the San Bruno Fire Department throughout the open space, removing dead trees and establishing defensible space zones. In addition, a detailed geotechnical report was prepared which outlines site-specific recommendations for the project. Regarding stormwater, the new lots have been designed to drain towards the new streets, and the amount of stormwater on the existing slopes draining towards Madison will actually decrease. There is an existing private storm drain line serving the site which connects into Keefe Court. We have worked collaboratively with the property owners on Keefe Court, planning for repairs and to ensure that the HOA will maintain this line in perpetuity. Finally, as noted by staff, a new stop sign and ADA ramps will be installed at the intersection of Madison and Piedmont Avenues. This was also a topic raised during our community meetings. Next, please. This exhibit shows everything that the Homeowners Association will maintain in yellow in perpetuity. The water and sewer mains within the private streets will be public. Next, please. In January of 2022, we began meeting with representatives of San Bruno AYSO and Lowen Soccer Clubs to understand their programs and the use of the Crestmore fields. This collaboration has continued as we participated throughout the city's Crestmore Fields master plan process and modified our stormwater treatment design to maximize playing field space without impacting environmental protection. I will now turn it over to Jill to provide a brief overview of our architecture. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. Pleasure to be here this evening. Jill Williams, principal with KTGY. We also have a long history with San Bruno and with Summerhill, and it's always a pleasure to be part of their team. There's such attention to detail and the attention to context and what we're bringing in as a new part of a neighborhood. And so I think staff did a great job with their analysis, and you've heard a lot about the lotting and the neighborhoods. And I think probably not enough can be said about designing on smaller lots and just that balancing act that we do with, I think, livable plans, great outdoor space, shaping the homes, as Elaine mentioned, kind of that stagger in the back. Not only does it create private open space, but it gives you some really interesting architecture, nice roof lines, a lot of breakup to it. And so we think all of that just adds to it being very intriguing as a new neighborhood. And so in front of you is the view across the passive park of the neighborhood 1, the little bit smaller homes that are closest to the new public park. You can see the architecture is a little bit more contemporary as we walked the neighborhood and really appreciated the homes around us and of what they meant at the time that they were constructed. And so we think of that when we think about being contemporary, of that it's a, for that time, what it all meant. Maybe we say understated entrances, maybe they're just appropriately scaled. And so really trying to take some cues from all of that and develop some nice floor plans within this neighborhood 1. So again, a little bit more contemporary. Next slide. You can see the kind of the statistics about it all and just a sampling of the styles. If you go to the next slide. For each plan then we have the 3 different styles. And we think that this variation in roof lines and roof pitches, you see some canted roof lines, a little bit more contemporary styling with garage doors and entry doors. And then this carries through, if you go to the next slide, to both plans 2. Again, you get the strong hip elevation on the A's, you get these more gable ends on the C's. And if you go to the next slide, then the Plan 3, they all follow along in a similar fashion, but they will all offer that diversity that we think is appropriate and necessary within the neighborhood. And then as we moved on to Neighborhood 2, next slide, that overview that you've seen of the more active Tot Lot Park, and you see the Neighborhood 2 homes beyond, starting to pick up a little bit more of some historical cues to some of the detailing. Again, really focusing on individuality of the homes that we know the home buyers will really want and that we think really creates a great street scene. In the next slide, same sort of thing. In this case, we have the 4 different floor plans. We have an A, B, and C style that is different than Neighborhood 1. There's a few little similarities and a few of the more contemporary features that have been brought in, but also you start to see us introducing a little bit more of a Spanish look, a little bit more of a farmhouse look. But again, in all of these palettes, you have stucco, you have siding, you have some different use of stone and brick veneers. So very rich, we think, in palette, but also something that really kind of ties them all together and has them be very fitting to a new neighborhood. And so, again, different roof lines and very specific entry doors and garage doors that have been selected for each style. I think if Aline hasn't noted it, we will be going through on the site plan, and specifically, already we know which home goes on which lot. We'll be selecting which elevation style, and we'll be selecting which color scheme. And that is how the homes will be sold, with those being established, so that we do want to control it at that level, just to make sure we really get the variety and the mix to get the neighborhood looking the way that we envision it to be. And maybe there's just a few more slides here of Neighborhood 2. If you go to the next slide, again, the 3 different styles that you're seeing for each of the plans, indicating the different material use, the different roof lines. If you go to the next slide, the Plan 3, same idea, but we think very distinct in its massing from each plan, and then the Plan 4. This is our BMR within Neighborhood 2, and you can see all the same use of materials as the other homes, so really looking that they will blend in beautifully within the overall neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. So our project will be sustainable. This will be an all-electric project with solar panels, water-conserving plumbing, irrigation, and landscaping. We have EV charge-ready spaces in the garage. Next, please. As staff noted, the project has a significant unavoidable impact regarding VMT. Even although the site is in the heart of a dense employment area and near amenities, as a mitigation, we will be developing a robust TDM plan that aims to reduce VMT through regular marketing, education, and resident programs and amenities. Next, please. Lastly, as described, is our affordable housing plan. So we have 24 single-family detached homes. There's 12 per neighborhood. Neighborhood 1, it's Plan 1. Neighborhood 2 is Plan 4. They range from 1,940 to 2,150 square feet. They're all 4 bedrooms with 2.5 or 3 baths. 8 of them will be sold to low-income households, which are households making less than 80% of our county's median income. 16 will be sold to moderate-income households of families or households making less than 120% of the county's median income. These will be deed restricted for 55 years. They're spread throughout the neighborhood, throughout the community, and we will be providing local preference to households that work or live in San Bruno as permitted by law and the city's ordinance. So in conclusion, we're very grateful to be here this evening. We accept the conditions of approval in the staff report, and we respectfully request your approval of our project tonight. We appreciate the collaboration between the city, the district, and the neighborhood and the broader San Bruno community to bring this project to life. And we're available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you to both for the presentations this evening. And at this time, I'm going to open it up to City Council members for specific questions on the two presentations. Are there any questions at this time from council members? Sure. Councilmember Medina. Sure, no problem.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentations. Just wanted to confirm a few things. For the solar panels that are being installed on all the houses and it's all electric, is there an option for solar batteries for each of the homes? Are they being designed with the batteries in mind or spaces for that? I'm also interested in the estimated construction schedule when you plan on starting, and how will this project be phased? Are you going to start building on one side or the other, neighborhood 1 or neighborhood 2? 155 homes, 2-car garages, 2 cars per driveway. How many street parking spaces are there? Just out of curiosity, I guess I could try to count them up, but if you had that, that'd be great. Specifically regarding the transfer of ownership of the field to the city, when is that going to occur? The elevations, what elevations will be provided? Rough grading is one thing, saying that it's going to be graded to a certain amount, but if you could provide additional details on the definition, your definition of what the rough grading is. Does that mean that the playing fields will be used as a stockpile for soil or a construction yard? My concern is how long will it take to convert the space once it's given to the city to turn it into a playing field? And how much additional hauling would it take if the soil was built up 3 or 4 feet? I don't know if that's the plan, but it's just curious to what elevation is the property in now, and how much will that change when the property transfer is made? Those are the questions that I have now. I know we were specifically told that the field use itself will be discussed at a later time, but my concern there is with the schedule of what's that going to do to the community for how we're going to plan that. So it's kind of all tied in together with the schedule and how this all is going to work, so that we can make sure that we have time to plan and put the fields in place.
Thank you. Can bring the applicant up, and again, this is about the land use as was stated. So let's keep the questions to that. Whether it's staff or applicant, who would like to respond to those questions, please?
So I'll just answer the questions.
Beautiful.
Regardless of what they are. Okay.
That would be helpful. Thank
you.
you.
So the on-street parking, we'll get back to you on the private street numbers. We do have the number of parking stalls that relate to Cortland Drive that would be within the public. Those total 156, including there's a public access easement to park on Street A. So we have 156 that have been identified within Cortland Drive and the public parking, and Street A public parking area. With regard to construction schedule, we anticipate starting demolition in February of 2025. We would start site work in June of 2025. With regard to when we would be ready to deliver the site to the city, should they choose to accept it at that time, that commitment is that it be rough graded and that our storm drain facilities are installed. We would expect, and this is, I say this schedule, monsoon or other things notwithstanding, our expected schedule would be we would be ready at the end of October of 2025 to deliver that that aspect to the site of the property, should the city choose to accept it at that time. With regard to the rough grade, we, as I mentioned in my presentation, we've been really coordinated with the city on the master fields schedule. So, we shared CAD files. So the goal is that the pad grade is the right general grade for them to execute. So we think of rough grading as, that's the general elevation you're going to shoot to, and then it's the finished grade is all that would be left. Obviously cutting in for infrastructure and things like that. So, we're not going to leave a big grading operation in the city's hands, if that makes sense. And then certainly if fields are ready and the city's ready to take the land, then we will work towards our staging. We'll work around the staging effort. With regard to the, let's see. The phasing. So we do have two neighborhoods. So how the project will be constructed is we do the demolition, we do the site work, and then we'll start model homes. And because we have two collections, we'll actually start both of those collections at the same time and work through the site in parallel. Certainly have to get, streets and infrastructure in place to start further into the subdivision, but that will be our goal would be to start model homes in July of 2025 with what we call production homes in October of 2025. With regard to the solar, so we set up the homes so that they can add battery as an option. The solar panels are actually part of the home. We use them for Title 24 now, but they could certainly add that as an option if they want. Did I miss any? I think.
No, that was very good. Thank you.
I think those are your questions. Thank you.
Anything at this time? Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, you could, if you don't mind, since you'll just for folks to know as far as the hauling away of material, the dust, the elements that arise, and I know trying to keep it clean as best possible, and the schedules and the hours when these trucks might be moving, and what is there's something that's on the books as when the hours of construction and work is being done, but if you could articulate that so people can hear that. Please.
So I guess with regard to the hauling, and you'll see as a condition of approval, we will go through with Public Works to determine a haul route of where the trucks come and go from the site. So that'll be part of the improvement plan consolidation. The city has conditions of approval also about noise, and that dictates our work hours. There's different decibel levels that staff can read off. That's per your code. They do go into, I think, 10 o'clock at night. We do work a conventional day generally, with some, so we don't work at 10 o'clock at night. We might find an extraordinary situation where we're doing concrete pours that we might take advantage of those later hours, but generally we work during the conventional workday.
And as far as, obviously with every project, there's questions, there's comments, there's suggestions, things that are noticed, and just need to have that information. Is there resources that will be available via website, via phone, person on site, contact?
Yes, that's a great question. So we will actually, just like we had community meetings during this process, we will host an on-site community meeting before we start, to hand out, construction contact information, walk people through the schedule, walk the site, answer any questions. So we'll have ongoing contact. Steve Bull in the audience, so we're always available if there's concerns. With regard to the dust control, we have a very rigorous air quality management district has very rigorous requirements. Now we will be off hauling soil. And so there's dust control on site that's required, and then also how we remove soil from the site is also under control, and it's outlined in the mitigation monitoring plan.
Thank you. Staff want to add anything, or is it? Mike?
Nothing to add to that, other than that as she said, there's a mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program that covers all of the dust mitigation.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions at this time, how many speaker cards do we have, please?
I have 10 speaker cards.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and start calling the names? And I would say to those speakers, if something's already been said, you can certainly say, you know, the last speaker just addressed all my things. You don't have to speak, but you can't yield your time to another speaker. So you have up to 3 minutes. You'll hear the bell ask you to stop, pause, or stop at that time. But again, if something is repeated and you want to just say, similar to the prior speaker, that's certainly fine as well. City Clerk.
First 3 speakers, Kathy Tordson, Greg Land, and Randall Booker.
Hi. I live on Madison, and I was just curious about, I had heard that they're going to put walking paths in the back where the tree areas are. Does anybody know anything about that?
Go ahead and have your time and ask your question.
That's my question.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, I'm going to be sitting in my backyard, and we're going to have people saying, hello, how are you? You know, is that going to happen?
We'll ask the question. We're going to get through everybody.
Okay.
And then start to take things in groups if we can. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor Medina, Vice Mayor Salazar, council members Medina and Alvarez, and city staff. My name is Greg Land, and I'm a trustee for the San Mateo Union High School District. I'm here this evening to urge approval of Summer Hills Homes project application for 155 new homes at the former Crestmore High School site. Let me start by thanking the City of San Bruno staff for advancing this project application to tonight's public hearing and for the Planning Commission's unanimous recommendation for the approval. The path to tonight's decision has not always been smooth, as you know, but the district and the city have continued working towards creating a goal of creating new housing and recreation space for this site. Tonight, that work has paid off in the project before you. The district is excited for this project for many reasons, including the following. The proceeds, as you heard earlier, from the sale of the site are anticipated to fund capital facilities improvements throughout our district, as well as for housing that the district is seeking for teachers and staff. The new homes will be filled with families and that will produce new students for the San Bruno Park and the San Mateo Union High School districts. Creating new public recreation space will meet the needs of the broader community. 24 homes, as was stated earlier, of the 155 will allow moderate and low-income families to put permanent roots in San Bruno. Once again, I ask that you recommend approval of this project tonight so we can bring this project to reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, and staff. My name is Randall Booker, and I am the superintendent for the San Mateo Union High School District. I want to echo Trustee Land's comments and thanks. I also want to address the ongoing community concern about the importance of our soccer clubs and the ability for these youth and these young athletes to continue their play. Organized youth sports are vital to social, physical, and emotional well-being. My staff and I plan to bring an item to our board next month seeking approval for a lease extension for AYSO and Loan to lease the existing Crestmore fields until mid-December of this year. And while we don't have a permanent solution, I will continue to work with City Manager McIntyre and his team as they coordinate ongoing discussions with our district, the San Bruno Park School District, Skyline College, and South City to explore options for soccer play while the Crestmore site is closed. And I, too, enthusiastically ask that you approve Summer Hills project this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next speakers are Larissa Ucañada, Rich Fern, followed by Joe Meyer.
Good morning, Mayor Medina, Vice Mayor Salazar, and council members Medina and Alvarez. My name is Larissa Ucañada, and I'm representing the San Mateo County Economic Development Association, or SAMCEDA for short. For 7 decades, SAMCITA has been a leading voice for business in San Mateo County, and we tackle the most difficult challenges like housing through goal-oriented solutions. On behalf of SAMCITA, I'm here tonight to urge approval of Summer Hill Homes project application for 155 homes at 300 Piedmont Avenue on the former Crestmore High School site. SAMCITA strongly supports this project because of increasing the supply of new housing at all income levels and in all types and densities is critical. In the past few years, the city of San Bruno has shown great vision and leadership in making smart land use decisions. From the approval of the Bay Hill specific plan to setting a city expectation of 1,000 housing units at Tampran to the approval of a thoughtful housing element. SAMCITA also supports this project because it will add important single-family homes to San Bruno's housing stock. What's even more important is that 24 of these 4-bedroom residences will be called home by local families qualifying at low income and moderate income levels. There are not many active development applications in San Mateo County proposing to create below market rate single-family homes. I urge the City Council to accept the Planning Commission unanimous recommendation to approve this project for final approval. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and the City Council. I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and I just wanted to point out a few things that I've noticed. First thing, that I'm a soccer referee, and the laws of the games, there's 17 laws, and the first 3 laws, number 1 is the field, number 2 is the ball, and number 3 is the players. Okay, so I know we're not talking about the field tonight, but we're talking that we're going to do something later on about that. But it definitely is going to impact the environment, and I'm glad that the superintendent of the high school district, and Greg, I'm going to hopefully talk to them tonight. I thanked them personally several times for letting us use the facility for 40 years. And I want to thank the city because the city actually was leasing it from the school district for about 35 of those years. And then eventually, when Summer Hill Homes took over the project and we had that thing called COVID-19, everything was closed. And for a year, that field was closed, and it was in terrible shape. The Gophers, that was their home, and they took over. And now we have some new fields that we're going to have to replace this, and we're going to have to start those. And I've been meeting with the city and the elementary school district because our concerns were where are we going to practice and where are we going to play. So we want to have some safe places to play, and that's going to be what it looks like right now. The city has Monteverde, but also we have one little problem. And the problem is we saw a great design of some homes here, which really great, and the city invested time and money and energy, and Challenger's Properties come up with this nice design of a facility, but there's no money to build that facility. So how can we have a plan, and we're shown these things, and they said, oh, that's great, and the soccer community is going to have this great complex, but we have no money to build that complex. And it's just not for soccer, it's for recreational play for everybody. Those people are going to be living there. So they're going to have there, and if we don't have, they give it back to you, and they have a date they're going to give it back to us. Well, I think the city, maybe they can find some grants possibly and get some money that we could actually use to possibly build the facilities. And the only things I wanted to say is we're closing our project right now. We had a tragedy in San Bruno with the PG&E fire. We have a great facility that's going to be there, the Aquatic Center and Recreational Center. And we had all these meetings, and I was here, and I was up at Crestmore, and we talked about recreational facilities. Well, there's no money to build our new recreational facilities, so we have to consider that. And I just want to urge the mayor, who I've talked to, and Marty was actually helping us beautify Crestmore to make it a safe place to play. So we just have to figure out where we're going to play so we can have a nice environment to continue the 40 years that we've enjoyed here in San Bruno. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Joe Meyer. I'm also involved with AYSO Soccer. I'm their field director and have been for the past 15 years. One of the concerns that I have regarding this project is the transfer of ownership from the developer to the city. When is that going to happen? I know Elaine was up here. She said, October 2025. And the one thing that I found out in being in the construction business, if it's not written down, it's probably not going to happen. It's one thing to have a tentative schedule, but I don't think this project should go forward, and what you have in front of you should be approved without a time deadline to state when the developer will transfer that property to the city. As Rich stated, we don't even know when we're going to get the money to build those facilities up there, on there. We get, what, they said $400,000 a year out of it? That's all the city is going to get? What's the cost of this facility? Where's that money coming from on there? Construction projects constantly get delayed. Things happen. So we need to know concrete, when will the city get the property is the big question here. How can you move forward? We can't move forward with any planning until we know when we can get started. It's not even our property. The second thing, the settlement agreement. Does that settlement agreement pertain to, keeps the city and the developer together in the high school district if the developer decides to sell this project after this is approved? Does it transfer over to the new person? Is the new developer, if they take it over, are they going to be obligated to give the city that property? Is that part of the condition here that's in front of you? Is that guaranteed in there that they will? And when would that happen? Construction projects get delayed. It happens in our community all the time. South San Francisco, right at the corner of Spruce Avenue and El Camino. What is it, 3 years they tore this facility down and it's still sitting there? Nothing's happened. So being hopeful that this happens by October of 2025, they're just words. It needs to be in writing and it needs to be secured. It's foolish to move forward without that being in this agreement. That's all. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next speakers, please.
Next speakers are Alex Schieffer, Rachel Meneses, and Angel Lopez.
Good evening. My name is Alex Schieffer. I'm a long-term resident here in San Bruno. I'm born and raised. Currently raising my family here right now. I have a 7-year-old daughter that plays AYSO, plays on the Lowen team. I coach AYSO up there. I grew up playing at Crestmore for years and years and years. And so it's pretty disappointing to hear that we don't have a plan going forward set in place for the future fields, because it was a second part of it was like another home for me growing up there. So I'd like that for my family. Again, I'm a very strong supporter of San Bruno. I want to stay here, but without sports and without that community, ultimately you're going to push us out and you're going to push a number of other people out of San Bruno. So that's also going to be unfortunate that we're going to have to go to other cities, either travel or move out of the city to get what we really needed. We need playing fields. Like, we can't not have areas to play and get outdoors. So appreciate it, and I just implore everybody to do what you can to get us those fields. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Rachel. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And Angel Lopez.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Angel Lopez Leiva. I volunteer as a vice president for San Bruno Lions 83. I appreciate the space to express my concerns. I know this item is not on the agenda, but I also know that this is a public hearing, so I'm allowed to express my concerns. I know probably a majority of you know that the vision of San Bruno Lions 83, it's a focus on youth recreation on soccer. We are a nonprofit organization, and we mainly focus on low-income families with interest in developing their children's skills and for soccer in a competitive environment. We have 30 teams with over 300 players from under 7 to under 19 years old. So a quick point, soccer is #1 growing sport in the U.S. And also in the world as in popularity. with the creation of Major League Soccer in 1994, the sport has been growing exponentially. Especially for 2026, the U.S. will be hosting the World Cup, and this sport, it will continue to grow, and players will continue to be interested and wanting to practice the sport, looking at their idols play in the backyard. I'm concerned where the city is not paying much attention, where all these over 300 players are going to practice and play while this the project is developing. I understand there's plans for the development of the new Crestmore, but there is not money for it. So I am here to ask for support from the public and the city council to try to get some funds and support to develop and fix John Moore, Parkside, and Monteverde, so we can play and practice while Crestmore is being developed. And I want to close with this message for the city council. Out of all those 300 players that we have in the soccer San Bruno Lowen, majority of them or some of them might be sitting on your chair right now. All of them or majority of them will be sitting here. The decisions that are made today are going to be your legacy. What do you want your legacy to be, and what do you want these players to remember of you? Thank you.
Thank you. Next speakers, please.
Next speakers are Jeff DeChower and Jamal Katoot.
Good evening. Regarding the homes, I was a carpenter for over 40 years, so I'm all about building homes. My biggest concern is traffic and the impact to the neighboring community. And I spoke twice at the Planning Commission, and I know they heard what I had to say, but I don't know if they really listened. So I wanted to express my concern to the council here that I believe that EIR, they didn't do the due diligence in doing the traffic impact study. And if you look at how they note the traffic on Cortland, it's one of two entrances to that community for 155 homes, and they note it as less than significant. So I don't really understand that. There's only two ways in, and that's one of them, and they're saying that the traffic load is less than significant on Cortland. I myself, I live on Madison. I've been there 30 years. I'm 3 doors down from Bennington, and I suggested a stop sign at Bennington and Madison. They added one at the top of the hill. Not needed at the top of the hill. It's needed mid-hill. I've been there when the high school was in operation. People come zipping up that street and continue up, and they come down, zipping down that street, and we need a stop sign there. Nowhere in the EIR is Madison mentioned as an impact street. And I don't understand that. They mentioned Crestmore Drive, San Bruno Avenue, Rosewood, but it's not Madison. And I lived it. I saw them zip up Madison to get to Piedmont, and then they come back down. So I would hope that before you accept this EIR, that you just give the traffic study one more look at it, because, like I said, I do not believe they did their due diligence. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. I was just wondering who's responsible for the asbestos removal, and who's going to be responsible for making sure it's done correctly? Because there's tons of people that live up there now, and just wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speakers, please.
Next speaker is Justin.
Hello. Yeah, I don't know if I walked out
during part of the presentation, so I don't know if I'd missed it, but I was just curious. It's a question regarding the open space. Is the city using an irrevocable offer of dedication process to obtain the open space parcel? Can the city staff please provide an explanation of how that process works, including the timing of transfer? And is the city going to be responsible for the maintenance? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I have no other speaker cards.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Once public hearing is closed, there will not be another opportunity. Is there anyone in here that wishes to speak on this topic that has not done thus so far? Hearing, seeing. Please.
I live on Madison Avenue, and it seems like a lot of the things that we're glossing over are not getting addressed. The traffic was one of them. I don't know how probably about 300 cars a day are going to transit our neighborhood and not affect significantly the traffic pattern. Also, what are the HOA fees going to be? Is the HOA going to allow off-street parking, or will they have to only use the parking in front of their house? How will utilities be supplied to this site? Are they going to stack more wires on the poles that are on Madison and Cortland and the other streets? I think that there should be significant addressing of the effect that all this is going to have on the residents of the streets that are directly close to this development. Madison and Cortland are going to be pretty much the only way in and out of there. I mean, going up Piedmont to Crestmore, that's also a way. Crestmore is a narrow street. Madison's very steep. The speed control is horrible. The traffic at the intersections is basically uncontrolled. Also, I have issues with the public access to the sloped areas behind Madison Avenue. That area right now is pretty secluded. If you put trails back there, it impacts the security of all the homeowners on Madison. I haven't spoken to anybody on Madison that is in favor of having public access in that forested area. Also, if vegetation is going to be removed, what is the access going to be like for that removal process? And I would also like to know how far the housing development itself will go beyond the fenced boundary of the current school department property proper. Also, drainage issues and landslide issues in the sloped areas need to be addressed. And yeah, there's a lot of concern with security for that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, seeing and hearing none other at this time, I'll bring it to the council to close public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I recommend that you
Continue
invite
open.
No, that you invite Summerhill to
I-
rebut any of the comments before closing the public hearing.
Okay. I was going to, so I was trying to take notes, and I know you were as well, so I'm hoping between the two we can start to cross off. But we'll keep public hearing open during additional conversations from the applicant and our staff on the questions that were asked. Thank you, City Attorney. Whoever would like to come forward to the podium. So I don't have this in great, but I think the first one was just walking paths.
Yes,
And the
there are
concern
no-
of site visibility.
There are no proposed walking paths on the open space.
Okay, I guess that answered that one. There was, okay. So I don't know, you were taking notes too. Do you want us to just address and then I'll see if we're crossing off?
Sure.
Thanks.
There was a question regarding, and I'm going to defer, there were a number of traffic related that I'm going to defer staff to. That with regard to asbestos removal, that will be done by a licensed contractor and it will be permitted through the City of San Bruno Building Department. regarding, let's see, there were some questions about the HOA fees. Those will be determined when the project develops an HOA budget with the Department of Real Estate. And those will be part of the, right now we're estimating them at around $185 a month. The homeowners will be allowed to, we have a CC&R requirement you'll see in our project applicant statement that provides that people do park in their garages, park in their driveways, so that guests can park on the street. There was a question about stacking more wires on Madison. All the utilities for this project will be located underground. So we tie in at the entrance to the site, and then all of our, there will be no overhead wires for the project development. We talked about public access. So I did have a conversation with one of the neighbors on Madison after the Planning Commission meeting, asking about the public access for the open space. It's the parcel between the new lots and Madison Avenue. And I worked with planning staff to detail how we would set conditions of approval, CC&Rs for the open space. I'm happy to, we got into quite a bit of detail, but I'm happy to read those, but I shared those with the Madison Avenue neighbors that we had met. That same group, we had met in 2022 back in their backyard to talk about geotechnical considerations. They pointed to me some cosmetic sloughage that had happened on the district's property. They showed me the V-ditch that's in their backyards. So a couple things on the geotech, as I mentioned in my presentation. There was a very detailed design level geotechnical report done for the EIR, which is much more detailed earlier in the process because of the considerations. So and I shared the mitigation measure with them. We'll be doing remedial grading in those areas. As I mentioned on the stormwater, the site is designed so the new lots actually tip towards the main project. So right now you do have water that comes from the site down towards Madison. We will actually reduce the amount of water that comes to Madison. Those neighbors shared with me they have a concrete V-ditch. It's actually on their property. It's a public utility easement. That structure is maintained by the city of San Bruno. With regard to the, and so public access, as I mentioned, we've developed how we're going to implement rules, regulations, and enforcement mechanisms for that open space area that does not have trails. With regard to the vegetation management plan, that will be done in conjunction with the fire marshal. We'll be walking the site and determining, which trees are dead, should be removed. I think at the last hearing, the Planning Commission hearing, somebody brought up a concern about trees that had been felled, I think is what it's called, that blocked one of the existing drainage ditches. The district jumped in right away. It's been removed and cleared. So that, you'll have a point of contact. We'll be able to implement things as we go along. We talked about drainage, I think. Those were the ones that, questions that applied to us that I could tell. I'm happy to answer any other questions that I might have missed.
I think there was about transfer of the ownership. You did say October 2025.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
No,
thank you
okay.
for that. Yeah. So as I mentioned, we are actually, and through the conditions of approval, we're going to offer for dedication the land through our final map. So that subdivision map process, we expect to happen in March, April of 2025. So as you're familiar with this, the final map comes forward with the offer for dedication. And then the city, it's in the city's discretion to accept that land at such time they deem appropriate. In this case, we are saying that as soon as, from Summerhill's perspective, as soon as we have the grading done and the stormwater done, the city could choose to accept at that time. You'll notice in the conditions of approval, there's an outside time frame that if once that work is done plus Cortlandt Drive is finished, then the city has to take the land. So that's kind of the path that we've mapped out with staff in that regard.
Staff, did you have some of the questions, or was someone writing them down, or a lot of it was about traffic and?
So we have our EIR consultant here with us, and she can comment on the traffic aspect of the project.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Christy Black, and I was the project manager for preparing the environmental impact report for the project. And I'll sort of start the answer about transportation and traffic, but then my colleague, Taylor McAdam with Fair and Peers, is on Zoom and is able to speak to it in greater detail. So I'll just start with, we did receive the comments on the draft EIR about traffic and transportation, particularly on Madison Avenue. And in the final EIR, we responded to those comments in writing, explaining that traffic under the California Environmental Quality Act is no longer a metric for significant impacts. So that's why the environmental impact report does not treat that as an environmental impact. Instead, it looks at vehicle miles traveled, safety, and other transportation-related topics. We did consider the comments about speeding on Madison in the final EIR and found that there's nothing indicating that this project would exacerbate those issues. We also did stop warrant analyses for Madison and Piedmont. Quantitatively, that is from sort of a volume of cars perspective, that this project would not require any additional stop control at Madison and Piedmont. But we also looked at qualitative factors like line of sight, and our traffic analysts found that a stop sign is warranted there. So we looked at what's required under the California Environmental Quality Act, and also looked beyond that at other issues, including in response to the concerns we heard at the Planning Commission to address those. And so now I think Taylor is on Zoom and is able to speak more broadly.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Not someone's nodding. Okay, great. So yeah, I can add a little bit, which is just that under CEQA, we, as Christy said, we look more, it's an environmental impact document. So traffic is not an environmental impact per se, but the number of vehicle miles that are driven, as a result of a project, kind of the total miles that are added to the road is the EIR topic. And as you've already heard, that is a significant impact, mostly due to the location of the project. But as part of a planning process, kind of good planning, we do look at traffic, but also safety related to vehicles. And that is why we looked at the 5 intersections that are closest to the project site. And so we do that very intentionally. Anything that is closest to the project site will have the most number of trips added to the network. The further you get from the project site, that number is going to decrease. And so that's why we look at those 5 and not any other intersections, because by nature, they will have fewer trips added as a result of this project as trips break up kind of throughout the network. And so for those, we looked at the number of trips that would be added, at what times of day they would be added, and what that would mean for traffic or delay to drivers, as well as if there were any concerns kind of related to safety or speeding or and those, again, are not an EIR topic, and so you won't find that analysis in the EIR. But thankfully, I think there's maybe the same gentleman that asked the question today. When that was raised at the Planning Commission hearing, we were able to add some detail into the final EIR responses, so you could reference those about the traffic volumes on Madison. And that's additionally why with the city we looked at doing the qualitative kind of stop analysis at Madison and Piedmont. And again, the volumes are very, very low, so they don't warrant a stop sign, but sight distance, because it's on a hill, basically when one car approaches the perpendicular approach, you can't really see the car very well. And so that's kind of an existing challenge, but more vehicles will be added to that intersection. So I think it's appropriate to address it with this project by adding a stop sign. I think there was another comment about like the number of trips. And so on Madison, for example, the comment was that there'd be 300 trips, and maybe this is what you were seeing in the EIR, but there's 300 trips total on Piedmont there, not added by the project. That's existing plus project is 300. And if you think about that over a course of a day, you could be sitting there for minutes on end and not see a car. This is also a residential use. And so trips are really spread out in a way like the high school would have way more trips, would have had way more trips generated, especially very concentrated trips during a peak period. And so if you have lived here since the high school days, what you'll observe with traffic is likely much less traffic than when the high school was in operation. So I think that kind of responded to some of the questions, but happy to stay on.
Yeah, please stay on in case there are additional from council. And I'm trying to, and I think the others had to do with fields, practice. There was something about beyond the fence that was asked about. I don't know if
the project would extend.
If it would extend beyond, yeah.
Yeah, generally we followed the fence. There's one little area that goes maybe 5 feet beyond the fence, but that was kind of the rule of thumb when we wanted to focus on the area that was already developed.
Okay, thank you. And I think the other items just they kind of roll up into the same, who's going to maintain the fields. I know that this item is coming back. And as far as the practice, I do want to say, I want to thank the superintendent and the trustee because I know they have listened, and I know that I've spoken when we had Let's Talk over in Millbrae about the project, and you are working. I know I've reached out to the college district and our representative to see what's available there. I know I've spoken to Jose at Cappuccino. I'll see him Friday at graduation, but and I know there's an upcoming meeting, and I know Rich has been trying to meet and say, what are our options? How can we formulate that and come together so in January of 2025 when it's anticipated that it's taken over, that is no longer usable space for these programs. Was there anything else that maybe I had missed or we didn't cover as far as the questions from the community? Okay. All right. Well, you already spoke, Rich. Well, but we can't yield time. Rich?
Okay, I just wanted to say one thing.
Rich.
Just one thing, please.
Very quick, please, because I'm going against my own rule, and you know what happens? I get the next person that says, well, guess what you did then? So.
I had about 10 seconds left, so let me take 10 seconds. The bioretention area, there's a shape that was there, was on the original plan. If you look at the drawings that's there, it showed a certain shape, got changed by Chandler when they talked to their engineer, right? Since we're not going to be able to build that the way the facility is anyway.
Okay.
Once you rubber stamp it, we're stuck with that bioretention area the way it's drawn.
All right.
That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Is there anything else by the applicant or staff to add to any of the other questions or comments that have just been made or have been made tonight? If not, City Attorney, be the time to close public hearing.
Mayor Medina, that's correct. You can close the public.
Thank you. At this time, is there action?
Mr. Mayor, I will make the motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion Salazar, second Alvarez to close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. With that, now we'll bring it back to council for additional questions, comments, thoughts. etc. Colleagues, Vice Mayor Salazar.
Thank you. So regarding the question that was raised about the asbestos, I know that was a concern when the old recreation center was knocked down as well. These are old buildings. They probably have a lot of toxic things in them. I think our biggest variance in cost for the RAC was the dealing with the contaminated materials. And even though there will be experts brought in to deal with that, I'm wondering on the city side, we're responsible for overseeing their work. Do we have the expertise in-house to know that whatever they're doing is being done correctly and that we're mitigating everything that we're supposed to mitigate?
So I'm Peter Gilling, I'm the Community Development Director, and on the issue of asbestos, it is part of the building permit process, but we rely on documentation that they meet the Bay Area Air Quality Management District rules and policies. So we're in some way a third party to that. We would rely on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District to be in the lead. They are the experts on the subject.
And would they provide inspections or would they monitor the project to make sure that they are compliant?
Off the top of my head, I don't know that, but we'll find that information out and have the council informed.
Okay. Yeah, especially, I mean, this project is really, it's right in the middle of a residential area, and I think we just want to know that we're doing everything we can to keep the residents safe up there. Another question that I forgot to raise before, I had a separate meeting with the developer, and a question came up, or an issue came up, that the city had actually requested that the street become, or that the city take possession of that private street. And I was wondering what drove that decision to take that private street and make it the city's property? And is it just so that we can have access to the parking there after it's developed?
That's very much a big part of it. Both Cortland and Piedmont off of the school site are public. And the thought is if you're going to have a new street that connects two other public streets and goes right next to a public park and is the main access to the public park, that it probably makes sense to be a public street. Whereas all the streets all the streets that come off of Cortland, those are only used by the homeowners, and those being private streets that don't meet our standards, that made more sense. So yes, it was something that was requested as a change from staff as we were working with the development team early on.
Okay. And I assume since it is a city-owned street, a public street, then we have control over any traffic mitigating measures that are taken there. So if there's excessive speeding through there, we could take measures to help alleviate that.
On Cortland, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, I've noticed on other large construction projects, there is a lot of damage that happens to the surrounding streets because of the construction. And I heard mention that the city will work with the developer in identifying a preferred path for materials to come in and out of there. And I'm wondering, is there a potential that the city could incorporate some sort of a condition that the streets have to be maintained, at least at their present condition, during the process and after the construction is completed?
Yes, that's standard practice, and if I get this wrong, the Public Works Director will correct me, but his staff, as part of their review of projects, actually asks for photographs and videos of the existing streets that are going to be impacted. Therefore, they have a visual record if the construction causes an issue, and then they can be required to do the repair. The developer can be required to do the repair.
Okay. Yeah, I saw significant damage around Allen School when that project was going on, and I don't know if it was different because it was a school, and I know they have different rules for building schools, But the streets surrounding that area and their lay-down yard and that empty parking lot, they seem to really take a lot of abuse during that process. So that's why I was concerned about these streets up there. They're residential streets, and we want to make sure we preserve them.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to add some information regarding some concerns on the air quality and asbestos mitigation. There's a website for the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. They are a third party. Part of the building permit process is before the demolition, that they would have to apply for a building permit through Bay Area Quality Management District, and they do inspect the job site. So if you are concerned, they have a website that elaborates all the services that they will do with regards to inspections. Also, I understand the concern of one of the residents on Madison. I see that there is a long road, hilly road coming down the city. There is a stop sign on Bennington, but not on Madison, that maybe we can also look into, as proposed by EIR, to put a stop sign on the top of the hill on Madison and what's the street? Sorry. Piedmont, sorry. So there's one that I see on Madison and Bennington, but no on Madison. Thank you.
Councilman Medina.
Yes, thank you. Just a couple, just wanted a little clarity on the private streets, on the parking, the restrictions on who could park there. I heard that guests are allowed on the street. So that's one question I want a little bit more clarity on. The question regarding the bioretention area about can it be adjusted, I'm not too sure I understand the question, but if we have somebody who can kind of try to answer that. And those are the 2 points. Thank you.
Is there anybody that can address, I think it's more clarity again on the on-site parking within the project? Peter?
As Summerhill mentioned, the HOA will manage that. It's not something that the city has as a requirement, whether they have special rules about the parking on the private streets. So long as if there is a red curbed area, that people don't park there. But as I said, I believe the applicant stated that the expectation is that guests of the homes will be allowed to park on the street. As for the bioretention, at this point, it's pretty much been designed. It's being proposed and recommended in its current form. If the council wants to change that, you can make that as part of your action. From staff's perspective, the bioretention area looks to use the same amount of land as was originally contemplated in the concepts plan in the original settlement agreement. So we're not sure about the person commenting that they think it's changed. The geometry of it may have changed a little bit based on how they designed the area, but the overall area that it's taking up on the ground is what we expected it to be.
All right, so for the first question, with the parking, so if it's a private street, the HOA could decide how to manage the parking, and so that would not come back to the city. The city doesn't have a right to dictate any of that. Is that correct?
As long as traffic safety laws are met.
Still have to curb your wheels on ramps, slope streets, and can't block the sidewalks. That's all.
Yes.
But basically, since it's a private street, the HOA can determine how to handle the parking on it. Oh, that's fine. And so if the bioretention wasn't adjusted, I'm just trying to, if the designer is here for the system, or is that available? Like, it's just contrary to what somebody has said, like something's changed, and it's like, I'm taking your word that it wasn't. So it's just kind of two contrary statements.
Reopen the public hearing? Well, I mean,
And if I can just add, so the point I'm speculating is, if it can be changed, that's to increase the field space. Otherwise, I'm not sure, because the comment wasn't really, there was no really additional, I'm not sure what that means, so. So I apologize. I just wanted to make sure that question is addressed, and I wanted to understand.
Sure. My recollection is when the council heard the master plan for the Crestmore Fields, there was a comment raised about the bioretention areas, and those questions had to do with trying to increase the mass of land so that you could accommodate more play space. I think at the time, the council accepted the argument that the bioswales or the bioretention areas as designed were going to be appropriate. So that's kind of where we stand right now, and I think what the community development director is trying to say is nothing has remarkably changed from before to today, other than maybe terrain and a few other proportions or contortions or whatever the word was he used earlier. So Councilmember Medina, I have a feeling that this issue, as it's being presented, you're being asked to accept it as it's been designed.
Okay.
Yes, and just as we look at the slides that we showed you earlier that have the tentative map, and then compare it to the slide that was used by the draft master plan of the fields, the shape of the retention area and the shape of the potential area the fields could be on look identical. Whether they are exactly or not, I can't tell you.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to give an example of Marymount, which was the old Carl Sandburg Junior High School. And they have one way in and one way out, and it's the same one. And so I think getting that road, even though it's something else we have to take care of, because up at Marymount, where it goes into South San Francisco blocked it and put a gate up. And it's only could be used in an emergency. So in essence, because we don't have that access, there is one way in, and it's that same way out. So if they had to get out via vehicle, there is only one way out, not two. So that, I think, brings that, and I know they are an HOA, and they do have certain rules about what side you can park on and what sides you can't park on, et cetera. So with that, are there any other questions or comments from colleagues on the topic? Is there any action from Councilmember Alvarez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a plan on widening the road from the end of Cortland going up to Piedmont for side street parking?
Can you repeat that? Is there a plan for?
Proposed plan to widen the road from the end of the Cortland Drive, coming down Cortland Drive, heading up to the Madison.
So you're talking about off?
As part of the
beyond the edge
development.
of the site. Is there, no, there is not.
Okay, thank you.
And I think the last thing I heard from colleagues was just, again, it came to the Madison, the stop sign, and I do know that is a long stretch of road that back in the days, I mean, you just There's nothing that stops you from the top to the bottom. Candidly, I don't know if that means speed bumps or what have you, but for those that have lived there a long time, they know it well, and the flow of traffic. Anything else from colleagues or any action from colleagues?
How are we taking these all at once, or?
City Attorney, can we take it as was read by the city clerk, if that was the wish of the council, instead of
Mayor
one by one?
Medina and Vice Mayor Salazar, that would be fine to just approve the motion as read by the city clerk.
Vice Mayor.
Through the chair, I'll make a motion to approve the motion as read, or the action as read.
By the city clerk. You did such a good job. Is there a second to it?
I second.
Motion, Salazar, seconded by Alvarez, to approve the motion as read by the city clerk. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. With that, thank you very much for being here and your time, and we're going to go take a 5-minute recess. Whenever we're ready, please. Council is back from recess. We'll move on to item 8, conduct of business, please.
Item 8A, consider adoption of a resolution establishing a cap on the fireworks stand permit cost recovery fee in the amount of 7% of each permittee's gross fireworks sales for the 2023 and 2024 Independence Day holidays, and waive collection of the non-refundable application fee for all previous years.
CFO.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I have a quick presentation for you this evening. Our objective here is for the City Council to consider adjustments to our historic cost recovery fee for temporary fireworks sales. Just by way of some background, in 2008, City Council adopted Resolution 2008-67. In that resolution, the council adopted a non-refundable application fee, as well as reimbursements for costs incurred. In 2022, costs incurred were approximately $66,000, and in 2023, they went to $99,000. In 2023, we issued the invoices to the nonprofit groups that operate the temporary fireworks booths. Those were sent on December 21st. After receiving feedback regarding the significant increase in those costs, staff met with the nonprofit booth operators. Specifically, we reviewed the significant increase in costs year over year. There was a concern expressed by the operators that they did not receive the notice necessary to pass on the cost increases to their customers as a matter of their practice. And then we also spoke about the passage of a new law, Assembly Bill 1403, which took effect on January 1, 2024, and how that legislation impacts the city's cost recovery program. So just as by way of background on the AB 1403, the legislation caps cost recovery at 7% of gross sales for those entities that are selling safe and sane fireworks. Those costs include processing and issuing permits, inspection of fireworks stands, public education and awareness campaigns, as well as safe and sane fireworks rules enforcement. In 2023, collectively, the nonprofits' gross sales was about $710,000. Under Assembly Bill 1403, 7% of the gross sales would be just shy of $50,000, and the city's cost for last year's holiday was just shy of $100,000. For next steps after this evening, based on City Council's direction and decision, we are proposing for 2024 that we maintain the status quo relative to operations plans and costs. We're very close to the holiday, and city staff have developed their plans to do the response that we've historically provided. However, considering AB 1403, we are, if the council adopts the resolution in the packet, the cost recovery for the groups would be capped at 7%. We would return to council in August with the costs incurred as well as the estimated cost recovery. Typically, we wait until the nonprofit groups file their report to the California Department of Taxation and Fee Administration, and that's due at the end of October, I believe. However, we will outreach just to get the initial costs so that we can report through to the council. As the program was not anticipated to be full, the program was anticipated to be full cost recovery in the city manager's proposed budget, so we will need to bring a mid-year budget adjustment to you in January. Going forward, annual process, basically three big components: the pre-holiday, post-holiday, and the annual review. In the pre-holiday, we expect to bring you a mid-year report on the past holiday and the upcoming holiday in the January timeframe. Post-holiday, clearly, we will be issuing the invoices to the nonprofits with the lower of 7% of gross sales or actual costs incurred allocated pro rata based on each group's sales. And then, of course, we will do the annual review, which would incorporate both reviewing any legislative updates as well as discuss with the booth operators and engage them in the process. So with that, the recommendation this evening is that the council adopt a resolution establishing a cap on the fireworks cost recovery fee in the amount of 7%. For 2023, we would issue invoices to the groups totaling $49,767. For 2024, we do not know the cost of that response just yet. However, we anticipate it to be higher than last year. And then finally, we are seeking that the council authorize waiver of all application fees for past years. As you may recall through the master fee schedule discussions, it became evident that we did not have quite the application fee as envisioned in the resolution. And since that point, the council has adopted a application fee. So that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. Are there any questions on the report from council at this time? Councilman Hamilton.
Hi, thank you for the report. So I'll save comments for later, but just regarding questions. So you stated in the report that operations are expected to stay, to not be changed and be the same as we've provided historically. But from the change from 2022 to 2023, the costs went up by like 50%. So obviously there must have been a change to the operations in between. So this probably isn't a question for you, Nick, but I just want to understand what we're kind of expecting for here for 2024 as far as operations and costs, if that's possible to know. Just because it's, it hasn't been a flat line.
Yeah, I would defer to our public safety officials there. I would assume that it's similar to the services that were provided last year.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, Ari DeLay, your fire chief. Our operational stance for this year will be exactly the same it was last year. The only potential increases would be any wage increases that are incurred by the employee. So that is our operational stance for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And then, yeah, go ahead.
More or less the same from the police department. I think a couple of the reasons for the real substantial increase that you're citing here between 22 and 23 pertain to pay increases, negotiated pay increases for staff, the negotiation of the lieutenant and captain rank that they could be compensated overtime for reimbursable details, which brought them being paid into the equation. And then staffing will vary year to year. So we order all staff that are available to work. As you know from prior reports, in one year there may be fewer staff available due to pre-existent vacation requests or sick time or disability claims. So it'll just vary year to year based on that as well. But our posture this year would be to do the same thing, to pull out all the stops to maximize enforcement for the community.
Got it. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So the invoices to the nonprofits went out in December. Why did it take so long to invoice them?
Yeah, I'll take ownership for that, Vice Mayor. We were in the middle of the transition in the finance team. I was trying to get my arms around the past billing practices and ensure that we were sending out the proper amount. Clearly, the costs did increase, and I was very concerned about that. But we were able to issue them probably 2 months later than we normally would have.
Okay. So but typically they would have gotten them sooner.
Yeah. Typically, we do our best to invoice roughly a month after we receive their final payments to the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. the sales tax folks.
Okay. And regarding the waiving of the fees, I know that we had a few emails from residents that were questioning why we were crediting back the application fees, and do we know what the total amount of that amount that we're waiving or that we're being asked to waive is?
So prior to this fiscal year, the city did not have an application fee. What was previously referred to as an application fee is the fireworks safety clearance inspections, which are provided by the fire department, based on each booth having a requirement for daily inspections. If I didn't have that number, but we're looking at approximately $1,500 per year if we were to go back in time. Of course, we did not have the fee on the books at that time. We were billing back for actual costs, however. And the calculations that were made in the past I have confirmed, and in the absence of an application fee, which we've now resolved, all of the charges in previous years were properly handled.
Okay. And so going forward then, this 7% of sales would be the only revenue that the city could expect from this activity?
So we have a couple of revenue matters that are related to the sale, or to the July 4th holiday. The first is clearly the $95 application fee, which covers our administrative costs to process the applications, and those are coming to council on the June 11th council meeting for approval. We have reimbursement for the direct costs incurred, which would fall largely under this 7% category. And then finally, we do have citations for that are issued on the holiday for illegal use, as well as for violations of the municipal code. And so those three revenue streams are treated differently based on their original source of, or the reason that they're assessed in the first place.
And do we have estimates on the revenue from the fines? Because I know that there's also, I mean, they can, I don't know, object to those or whatever the process is that they go through, so they may not all get charged, but do we know over the years how much that has been on average?
So for the last holiday, 2023, there were a total of $29,700 in fees assessed, or actually $30,700. One of those items was appealed and was refunded $1,000. So on the remaining $29,700, we have only been successful in collecting about $13,000 of that. We are exploring more alternative. They do go to collection. However, there are opportunities for us to take advantage of a state program that would allow us to collect that money effectively if an individual is due a tax refund from the state. And we file a claim, then our claim is paid before the individual receives their tax refund. So we are exploring that for 2025.
Thank you.
Other questions of Councilmember Medina?
Yes, and thank you for the report. Just kind of wanted to follow up on, so we're not going to collect as much money by law. That whole of, was it 50,000, more or less? So that's the the general fund. And so the citations, that money goes to the general fund that we get. I mean, because it kind of seems like it almost should come to the like if you had a fireworks fund, that it would kind of go into that pot and then it would get paid out. Because the whole point of having the enforcement on that day and paying for all that additional enforcement is to reduce the amount of illegal fireworks. But I guess it's kind of moot now because we're capped at 7, and since that's general fund, that the general fund is going to pay for it anyhow. So I just want to get some clarity on that, and that is it really worth the amount of effort we're making. From the year before, we received one more citation, I believe. And we spent 50% more money to get one more citation. I believe the previous presentation had a listing that some of our personnel were working basically double shifts. And it's like that work balance, 4th of July, are we really justifying the expense in trying to stop illegal fireworks?
Councilmember Medina, I can't speak to the second question, but I will speak to the first. You're absolutely correct that in previous years, and including this current year, when a fine is paid, it is deposited to the general fund. There are offsetting costs related to issuing the citations that are not directly reconciled. There are administrative costs. There are the costs of the appeals, and the hearing officer sitting right next to me and does an excellent job reviewing those cases. So to answer your question, in the past year, there was the cost recovery that was in 2022 was $66,000. Citations were on top of that, and there was a cost that we haven't tabulated. But by way of is the juice worth the squeeze is not something that I can offer a perspective on.
Is there somebody else that can answer that? Should we talk about this some more? I think we're going to take a $50,000 hit. Yeah, and that's a pretty good squeeze.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I can, I think this council, and I think I've shared this privately with each of you, this whole program is a lot of effort. It's a lot of work so that we can allow the sale and then turn around and enforce on the other side. We spend a lot of money. Our public safety folks are working, through the evening and whatnot. And it's just a big deal. And I know it's a tradition in the city. I know the voters have said and have reaffirmed more than once now that this is something that we shall allow. It is a fundraising effort on behalf of a bunch of community groups. I have, in a joking way, and I want to be very clear, I'm joking, but said, why don't we just give the money to the community groups and cut everything else in between? It is a joke, but we do go through this shenanigan to get to this end game so that money is raised over here. We spend a lot of money over here. It made sense when it was cost recovery. It was. I could hold my nose and say, this makes sense. It is now getting much more complicated. And we have produced the budget. We will present it to you next month. And money is not something that comes to our city easily and readily. And even things like collections that you just heard, 50% of the appeals, 50% of the fines have only been collected thus far. Somewhere along the line, we have to stop and ask the big policy question, is this really worth it anymore? And that would be my question to you, and I don't mean to push back your policy question, and I would turn around and rephrase it. I think what you're asking, Councilmember Medina, is our public safety costs, which are the big piece of this. Public Works is second, and then community services is third. Could we taper our public safety investment in this? Sort of cut back on how much enforcement we have? I would push back onto the council and say, do you want to take the public policy hit for those who do complain about the fireworks, for those who do complain that we cannot respond to the dispatch, respond to the calls for service? It looks like we're not doing everything. And I think the chief can hold his head up high and say, we have every man and woman on the streets tonight. Every resource we have is out there. So to pull that back, I think politically could not work in our best interest either. So, to beginning to the end, it's complicated. We spend a lot of money and a lot of effort to do this. The rules have changed on us suddenly, where we're not recouping all the money we previously would have and should have. And so we're now in this position where it's going to cost us, it's going to cost the taxpayers. Let's be very clear who it's costing. Taxpayers will be spending $50,000 a year more for fireworks, for safe and sane fireworks in our city. Councilmember Medina, I think I dodged your question, but I reframed it.
I mean, this is what makes, one of the things that makes being a councilman kind of difficult is the laws change, and now we have to deal with $50,000 less going forward. And how do we have this balance? I believe that there were less calls in last year than this year, or the previous year, because this was agendized for the last council meeting, and the presentations have changed since then, right? Because we have more clarity on where we are with the 7% cap. But I think it's an interesting question. I was interested in hearing if our colleagues, I mean, you brought it up like, well, should we talk about it? And I think we should. It's like there's a point where you're going to be saying, well, 50,000 this year, it's going to be 70,000 next year, and then 90,000. Like, when are we going to say enough's enough? And for the cities that don't allow fireworks sales, they're doing very, very little. And I'm of the opinion that all this extra effort is to get after the illegal fireworks, which aren't being sold legally in San Bruno. They're getting picked up wherever they are, and then they're being brought here, and then when you catch them, 50% of the time they don't pay, and we could try to get that better, but I think if we did put it on the ballot, it would pass, that the residents would still want it. But I think we have the power here to have that discussion of should there be a cap on how much we're going to spend? And that's the kind of question I'm throwing back with the council if they want to talk about it. I think it's worthwhile, that we should be talking about it. But maybe not. So I've said my piece, and we'll see if anybody else wants to talk about it.
If I can, I think you have a couple of speakers on this topic as well from the audience.
Okay, but we're still having a discussion. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So I think I would agree with Councilmember Medina that it's a discussion we need to have. I don't think it's really related to tonight's topic, but at some point we do have to address what we're willing to do. And if next year all of the nonprofits decide it's not worth it, we don't have enough volunteers, we're not going to do it anymore, now taxpayers have to bear the full brunt of that. So at least we're getting half. Half is better than nothing, but at some point it could go away. And I've always had mixed feelings about, forcing the sale of the Safe and Sane to offset the cost of what we want to do for illegal fireworks, which remain illegal, and we probably have to deal with them regardless. So we've had that benefit for a long time, and we've enjoyed that benefit. It's as the city manager said, it kind of made it a little more palatable. But if that goes away, I think we definitely need to have that conversation about what are we willing to do and how much are we willing to spend to do it.
And the only thing I'll say, and I will get to the speakers, is that I don't think tonight is the right night about it. But at the same time, too, where I do have it is, and the police chief, who I'll call on, can correct me, but we used to even have more officers that came from other jurisdictions that were on that evening. And we don't have those. So that has decreased. I think that there can also be a look at the proposed expenditures of outreaching or marketing or whatever it may be and say, can we trim a little here, cut a little there? Can we reassess the importance of what really helps in communicating? But I do think that what I want to be mindful of to our city staff, especially our police department, is that because of the voters ask and because councils and staff want to see and try to ensure to the best of their ability a safe community and that people can enjoy the 4th of July and still feeling that they get service and response. If council and maybe this is a better discussion for budget, is saying, no, let's just do like most communities do, add a little here, a little there. And it becomes, comments come back, this was the worst I've ever had. Because I hear that every year, and I go out every year, just about. So I think that's the balance. But then I don't think it's fair to have a report, or maybe we shouldn't have a report, that comes back and everybody says the PD didn't do anything. That's not fair to the department. So that's the only one thing I do have strong concern on. But Police Chief, if you have anything you'd like to add.
Just briefly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. In response to Councilmember Medina's question, and I think I wouldn't change any of the characterization that our city manager gave. It was spot on with what I would say, but just to add to it, the difficult answer to your question is that when we consider policy that removes enforcement, we will not know the impacts of that until after you make such a decision. We've seen this throughout the state with the end of enforcement of a number of different things that we are now trying to walk back because we did not properly assess what the impacts of that would be. To the mayor's point, every year the sentiment from much of our community is that it was the worst 4th of July ever. The reality is that the data doesn't support that, but that's the experience of our community. And as the mayor articulated, my fear is that bringing back the enforcement that occurs in San Bruno, it's become an expectation of this community that the police department will be responsive to that problem that they are experiencing on the 4th of July. And if that changes, I think it is important, and I would appreciate the support of the council in that being something we own as a city, because it will come back on the police department, where it always does. The question of what did you do this year? Why was it so bad? People were lighting off bombs in my neighborhood. You're not doing anything about it. They say that now, and the reality is we're doing a lot about it. How does it change when we say you're right, we're not doing anything about it? And I think that needs to be considered in the conversation of where we go policy-wise from here.
Thank you, Chief. We'll go to Councilmember Alvarez, and we'll go to our speakers, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the privilege to do a ride-along last year during our July 4th, and I have witnessed the effort and the hard work that the PD did. And as a result, we had limited incidents, we had limited fire incidents, and they do their job every year. And I just want to acknowledge that if we remove that, then the whole community is expecting the fire department and the police department to do their job, and they are doing their job. I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you. May we have the speakers, please?
I have 2 speakers, Bob Luttrell and Dennis Revel.
And thank you for your patience in waiting.
All right, nice. It's nice to be here. Yes, again, my name is Bob Luttrell. I've been the longtime committee chair of a large Boy Scout troop and a large girls troop in San Bruno. And our primary fundraiser every year is hosting a fireworks booth in the Lucky parking lot in San Bruno. In a typical year, we'll earn $6,000 to $8,000 from our fireworks booth that funds much of our program during the year, awards, pays for supplies for a lot of the community service we do. So it's been a very important fundraiser for us. With the large increase in the 2023 direct support costs, police, fire, et cetera, we were one of the groups that were trying to better understand why our share of those costs was so much higher. And we appreciate the efforts of Nick and his finance team and the police chief and the fire chief to meet with us on multiple occasions and help us understand, what drove the spending increase. So we felt like there was a great partnership as a longtime resident of the city and the city staff, and I was very proud of that. Over the past several months, we also came to understand that with the recent passage of this new legislation, AB 1403, that there was this 7% cap that was suddenly in play. If you look at the $99,000 in costs direct costs that came through in 2023, that was about 14% of the total fireworks sales made by the different groups in the community. There are about $720,000 in fireworks sales made in total 2023, about the same number in 2022. So the piece that's really was driving the increase that the nonprofits saw as they got their invoice for the share of those costs was this dramatic increase for the cost pool. As we look at what's proposed tonight, as a long time, somebody who's managed one of the fireworks booths for a long time, I just want to let you know my strong support for adjusting the 2023 reimbursement level to that $49,000 number, which gets us at that 7% range, and then also operating with the 7% range for 2024. I think going forward, the key thing is to really look at the cost side. Again, it's the fireworks season for this year is just around the corner. There's not much we can do at this point, but I'd encourage you to have the right subset of, city administration look at 2025. What can we do to better control costs, be more efficient in how we spend money? And I think that would be a very appropriate thing to target. So thanks for the time.
And again, thank you for being here and your patience. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Dennis Ravel, President of Ravel Communications. I'm here on behalf of our client, TNT Fireworks, and the nonprofit organizations that it has the honor of partnering with here in San Bruno. I want to thank Mr. Pegueras and his staff, Police Chief Johansson and Fire Chief DeLay for their collaboration and arriving at this resolution of on the cost sharing. In response to some council members in terms of the illegal fireworks problem that this community and every community in California is facing right now, unless and until state and federal authorities do something to stop the supply chain, primarily coming in from 13 brick and mortar stores in Nevada. Communities will continue to, unfortunately, be assaulted by aerial displays that sometimes are better than the public displays many communities fund. And I would share with you that there is currently a proposal before Governor Newsom that is being supported by the state fire marshal and fire authorities throughout the state to have California engage in a discussion with the Nevada governor to have and try and construct an interstate compact agreement whereby the sales data to California residents who go to those 13 stores and bring the products back into California would be shared with California law enforcement and fire agencies in the hopes that that will, at a minimum, put law enforcement agencies on notice who in their community may be supplying, using, or selling those products. Because clearly, if we can stop that supply chain, it will do a lot to make every community in the state safer. In addition, I would add, in our discussions, I've shared with your public safety personnel who are exemplary. I have to tell you, I mean, I have to work with 296 communities throughout the state. And there are some ways in which you can increase the impact your illegal citations, or fireworks citations have in terms of procedure that many jurisdictions are beginning to use, which is affectionately referred to as stacking, that rather than citing an individual for setting off 10 different devices as one incident, they treat each device as a separate citation, much like as if a criminal were to fire a gun at 5 different officers, he would be cited for each officer that he fired at. So I'd be happy to share those details with you should you choose to discuss this.
Thank you very much. With that, I don't know that, I think there were statements. I don't know that there were questions. It was just a suggestion about, quote, the term stacking, which I don't think the city of San Bruno does stacking for anything. So to pick this, and this is just me speaking for myself, of course, it's not on the agenda, but it has to do with the citation element. I mean, that would be if you had some other paraphernalia or whatever, and you're cited for 10 times because you had 10 items of something, and you have a $10,000 fine, and we're trying to collect 50%. I don't know that that resolves or solves. I won't even ask the chief unless he chooses to want to respond. I just not understanding that idea at this time. So with that, is there any other discussion from colleagues?
I'll just make a quick comment. So, I mean, this whole arrangement, this new arrangement, you know, given the new legislation and all that, this new arrangement seems fair to me. Given that we would still have a large illegal fireworks problem if we didn't sell the legal ones, you know, having us share some of the costs seems, you know, on the face of it seems fair. I'll be supporting this action, and I would support a future discussion of how we could, you know, look at the programs that we're doing, the outreach before the 4th, the enforcement on the 4th, and you know anything that happens afterwards. Look at that whole program to see where we can find some efficiencies, if possible. I mean, you know, this is probably the thorniest issue that we face as council members. If you, as soon as you bring up the idea of, you know, should we sell illegal fireworks, or should we sell legal fireworks in San Bruno, you're automatically making enemies of half the people in the room. So, you know, regardless of what your stance is, because, you know, from in my experience, 50% of San Bruno says, yes, we need to sell these. It funds all of these wonderful programs, and the other 50% think it feeds the illegal stuff, and makes things worse than they want to ban. So that's a discussion for another day, but I would be supportive of looking at this holistically. But I'll be in support of this recommendation tonight.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? I would think this is a budgetary item. I think this is where it should be addressed, and then that's where we can answer those questions. Is there any action by council?
I'll move to approve the item as read by the city clerk.
Second.
Motion Hamilton, seconded Salazar. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Let's move on to item 9, council committee report outs. Are there any for this evening? Go ahead, Tom. Councilmember Hamilton.
So I have 2 report outs. On May 16th of this month, we had our every other month meeting of the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, or BAUSCA. Our total system storage is at 93%, which is 10% above normal for this time of the year. We approved our 24-25 budget of $5.6 million, which is approximately $9 per customer account. This includes a 9% increase in the annual assessments to the member agencies. For San Bruno, that means our assessment is going to go up from $67,600 to $74,360 in next year, and I'm sure this has been put into the budget we're all reading. The negotiations with member agencies, including San Bruno, on a new Tier 2 drought allocation plan continue, with a target of finalizing the updated plan by the end of June, which is right around the corner, so that each member agency can work to agree by the end of the year, because all 26 member agencies need to approve it unanimously for it to go through. If there are holdouts and we can't get everybody to agree, then BAUSCA will need to take action by the end of the year to extend the current agreement, so that there's an agreement in place in case we face drought. We continued reviewing the scope of work and provided feedback in advance of anticipated approval of our long-term projects at our July 2024 meeting. And then sad news, in my opinion, our CEO, Nicole Sankula, informed the board on April 30th that she intends to retire as of the 20th of December of this year. So the board chair appointed an ad hoc recruiting committee, and we are going to be securing a recruiter to look for a new CEO. And then my second report out is from the Airport Land Use Committee meeting on May 23rd. We discussed the draft CCAG strategic plan, including their short to long-term plans, including 2 key items for San Bruno, the planning and designing of 3.7 miles of buffered bike lanes along El Camino in San Bruno and Millbrae, and implementing the recent $2.4 million federal earmark for the initial design for a regional stormwater capture project at the 380-280 interchange in San Bruno. Both projects are listed in the medium term, 2 to 5 years timeframe. Also, particular interest in their strategic plan is to support cities with meeting the RENA requirements and with securing the HCD Pro housing designation. So this whole plan will have a public comment period likely later this summer and will be considered for adoption by CCAG, of which Councilmember Salazar is a member. That full board will look at it probably this fall. But we appreciated the opportunity as a subcommittee of CCAG to be able to give comment on the plan. And then we also approved amendments to the Redwood City zoning code and approved a new child care center in downtown San Carlos.
Thank you. Other committee reports out. Councilmember Medina.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anything else? I just have 2. I'll make them brief. On the 15th, the Emergency Services Council met and the budget was approved, with which was a good news, a minimal cost to each jurisdiction, and that's thanks to the Board of Supervisors' action earlier about approving 2 positions for DEM, which are taking on those additional costs that would have come to the jurisdictions. Last Friday, had the Council of Cities, which met in Redwood City, and it was at the port, which was interesting to hear how the port project took 20 years to what you see it today, and it actually, the speaker said it took almost 30. From concept to reality. And we met at the restaurant that's there, and the owner of the restaurant was able to give us her opinion and thought process on how it was, because they built it from the ground up. And so what you see today is from nothing to today in the process, the time frame, and where things could go better and how to help the process. And that's it for Council Committee report outs. Let's go to comments from council members. Let's go to the first item, please, and that is item A, Councilmember Marty Medina, study session for revisions to parking enforcement and parking kiosk fees. Councilmember.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to thank everyone for their patience and understanding as we change into having these parking meters and the enforcement. I have been communicating with business owners, residents, and shoppers on a daily basis. I've attended 2 community meetings, a resident meeting, and have responded to 3 news agencies about our community's concerns. I have forwarded these concerns to staff for various parking meter and parking enforcement issues, such as hours of operation on the street ending at 8 p.m., the fact that we have Sundays that are not free, the signage issues, malfunctioning kiosks, and enforcement issues. But based on the community's feedback, the #1 request that I've heard is the ability to have shorter time intervals than the current 1-hour minimum. I have met with the city manager and the police chief to share these concerns. And it is my understanding staff have been investigating a number of these options along with the other problematic issues. So I brought this forward so that we could provide an opportunity to provide either guidance or a discussion around what we're hearing from our community. So the attempt to agendize it, this is the format that we've all approved on. We have enabled our police chief to adjust the fees on the parking meters, and I think that it's time to have a discussion about it. And my gut feeling is we could wait for more data, of course, but I think this is a matter of what's really appropriate and what's fair to have a parking meter program with the interval where if somebody wants to come and spend 10 minutes in a store, they shouldn't have to pay for a full hour. So I'm looking to hear from staff of what has been done so that we can share it with the community and see what progress has been made on the shorter time intervals. Because what I've heard is, well, why does all the other cities allow for something different? And I think that's a totally valid question. I have some insight to that about the fees that we're charging, that are we being charged from credit cards, and I think that we need to look into that, and I believe staff is, and I just want to hear where we're at. And if we need, as a council, to provide that guidance, then I feel that's our responsibility and that we should do it. So, Mr. Mayor, that's where I stand.
Thank you. How many speakers do we have? Two?
We have two.
Well, I also want to be mindful when we have speakers that have sat here since 7 o'clock, that if they wish us to go forward, I'm going to yield and just ask, or if maybe they need to go because they have a business to open in the morning or work to do. So are you okay to continue to hear? Okay, thank you. Just want to be courteous.
Sure.
Councilmember Hamilton.
So,
and I apologize, Councilmember, because you'd asked staff a question, and Mr. Hamilton is.
We can go through this, yeah.
So do you want staff to?
I think probably it'd be best for staff to hear whatever comments we're going to have and then answer it at some point when they feel it's appropriate.
Okay, I just wanted to clear, because you did ask staff.
Got it. Thank
I'm not going to ask any different questions. I just want to add my comment. If Councilmember Medina had not agendized this, I would have. When we implemented this program, the idea was we would implement it and we'd collect data for a period 3 to 6 months and then reassess and make adjustments, and that makes perfect sense. And I am in favor of continuing that for the vast majority of the issues that are being discussed. It's the short term where I really feel that there was a miss. It was a miss on our part. And no other city has a 1 hour minimum. And the whole idea behind this program was we were not going to reinvent the wheel. And there was no reason to reinvent the wheel in San Bruno. We're the second to last city in our immediate area to implement paid parking, and Millbrae is getting underway, and I'm sure they're watching us very, very closely so that they don't step on the landmines that we're stepping on right now. But the not having a short-term option, if we think of some of our stores, the coffee shops, the liquor store, if you think about the liquor store, there is not a single use case where someone's going to need to spend an hour at San Bruno Liquor on San Mateo Avenue. So if you're going to shop there and you don't live within walking distance, you have to pay for a minimum of an hour to patronize that store, even if you're just going to run in, pick something up, and leave, which is the vast majority of their customers. And that's the feedback that we've been getting. So and I understand that the 1 hour minimum is in place because of credit card minimums. Those same credit card minimums exist in our neighboring cities. In San Mateo, there's a 50-cent minimum for credit cards. In Burlingame, there's a $1 minimum for credit cards. And I just would urge staff, I know they're looking into it, but we need to be talking with our neighbors and finding out, well, how are they doing it? And why can't we do that here? And so that we can, and time is of the essence, because this really is a big issue for the folks that are patronizing downtown. Lot with all of that said, we've gotten a lot of feedback from folks. So there's a lot of negative feedback about the entire program. There's also a lot of positive feedback about how it is increasing turnover. I came down to San Mateo Avenue on Friday night with my wife to have dinner, and it was before 6. The lots were full. The street was full. It was bustling. We went to Marimar for dinner. I got the last spot on the street and felt lucky to get it, because so it wasn't, and it was, parking was still being, enforced, and had 2 hours left of enforcement on the avenue, and still a few minutes left of enforcement in the lots. And, you know, and it was jumping. So I'm still in support of the program, but we do need to make this tweak, and we need to make it as soon as possible. So if this comes to a motion, I would be happy to second it.
Okay, so no questions, you just wanted to have your views before we hear from staff?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else before we go to staff? Or if staff has anything, or if they want to just, if staff does not wish, okay. That makes it, well, so I guess you're not having any staff input tonight. Oh. This is what I'm.
So it's not agendized, but.
Well, we haven't voted.
Right. Give me a second. Give me a second. Right. I'm sorry. So if I ask staff a question, I would I guess they could choose not to answer it. So I guess the question is, where are we with the time interval? How far along are we? Or we've spoken to the banks, what is the issue? And if we need to, then do we need to change a bank? Do we need to change something? What needs to happen? How are we the only ones that, if we need to put a minimum charge on a credit card, then let's do it.
You're talking about taking the transaction fees and putting those to the customer.
Right.
As an example.
Yes, sir.
And if that means it's 45 cents or 50 cents, then you would charge 45 cents or 50 cents for an increment of time, which is the cost to the vendor, not the vendor, the transaction fee. So in essence, you're making zero.
No.
If it were to come out to that math.
I see a nodding of the head over there, but there's a minimum transaction fee.
Correct.
So if somebody puts in 50 cents, there's no transaction fee because they're not using a credit card. So that's what we're hearing. It's like, boy, what I've heard is, I wish I could just go to the meter, throw in 50 cents, get 20 minutes, do my shopping, and I'm good. Now, if you wanted to use a credit card, well, then there's a minimum charge on that credit card because you're using a credit card. So that's the question. Where are we at? What would it take to get a shorter time interval?
A couple of things, if I can. And as council knows, I left 2 weeks ago and I got back this morning. So I have no new information to share with you. The staff may have more. So if they want to jump in, I welcome them. That would be the CFO or the police chief. But what I can say is one of the analysis that we need to undertake is to understand what that would be, how that would impact the finances of the program. To remind the council, we spent $2.5 million acquiring this program so that we could fix the parking problem downtown. And if Councilmember Hamilton's anecdote is representative of what's happened, I think we have fixed the problem. I think we have had success in sort of creating the turnover. The parking lots are fuller. I think anecdotally things are looking good. I think I remember very distinctly what the chief saying to this council 4 months ago was, we need data. We need to look at the data to understand what's happening and how we can best adapt the program to make sure it is successful, whatever success means. The council had to know, because the staff had to know, that this was going to be a change. And in a snarky email I sent to you all one day, I talked about change is hard. And a lot of people just don't want to embrace the change that we're trying to embrace here. Again, council identified the problem, or the community identified the problem. Council came up with a policy solution, and we said, let's let this stand for a while. Give us 3 to 6 months to work with it. My only concern for all of this is, what does it do to the finances of the program? This program has to be fiscally sound for the city to continue it. We can't pull it back. We can't kill the program. That's grossly irresponsible, in my opinion. So this is the question of, what does that analysis look like? As you know, it's budget time right now. We have for you, we published the budget, as I said earlier, and I do not see how we get to this in the month of June, this topic, given the budget we're presenting on June 11th and asking the council to adopt on June 25th. So probably we're looking at the first meeting in July to have any kind of study session on this. And the study session, keep in mind, is a study session, not necessarily an action session. So you're looking at the second meeting in July then for any kind of action. If you tell us this is your #1 priority, we can shift everything around. but this is an 11th hour, stop everything. We need to make some sort of changes. And I know it's not 11th hour. I've had this conversation with all 5 of you before about this topic. This is not a new topic. I'm aware of it. We just need more time to analyze the data. I would like to look more closely at the numbers to figure out what does it do to us fiscally. And you will, if you've had a chance to look at the budget that we've actually produced for you, you know, $500,000 from the parking fund is being used to balance our city budget because it was a loan. So again, all of this is important. All these are important details. So it's not a simple matter of, oh, let's just change the meters and call it a day. I could, where did he go? Oh, I could direct the chief. Where did he go? He's behind. Oh, sorry. Sorry. He was sitting there before. I could direct the chief to change this tomorrow. But honestly, I think that would be irresponsible on my part without understanding what the impacts are going to be. I understand the consumer impact. I'm not lost on this. And I've had conversations, I think, with each of you about, is it 10 minutes? Is it 15? Does 15 turn into 18? When does 18 become 20? This is a slippery slope that you're going to regret. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say this. This is a slippery slope I just want to advise you to be careful on, because originally it was presented to me as 10 minutes. We just need a 10-minute grace period. Well, then we started realizing, well, if we get that cup of coffee, it might take actually 15, so it should be 15. The minimum charge, if you divide by the $1.50 by 3, it's actually 50 cents, and then it's 20 minutes. I just think there's a lot of analysis that needs to be done on this. And I understand some of the merchants' concerns. Again, please understand this. This is not lost on us. Instead of this tweaking it here, in the 2 more months, we're going to tweak it again. And in 2 more months, we're going to tweak it again. I don't think that's the best way of doing this policy. That's my opinion. But we could change everything tomorrow if the council directed us to do so.
Let me see if there's anything from my colleagues, and then we want to obviously hear from those who've been patient with us.
I can wait.
Okay.
I want to do the.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. St. Clair, could you call the speakers? Come on up.
Hi, everybody, again. This is really upsetting to hear the city manager, who, again, I will speak to and will not even look at us. I mean, you guys are all humans, the city council. I've tried to talk to all of you. For him to not even look at us is really sad. You know, I personally came up here months ago, and I said, the police chief, I trust him. I said, please give him the power, because Alex just said that he has the power to change everything. Marty asked a question, when is it gonna get done? And you said, maybe July, 3 to 6 months. What we're worried about is money. What you are not listening to is that we are humans. We have children. Thank you, Rico, for caring that I have to open a business at 7 a.m. and I'm in a city council meeting at 10:10 at night when all I hear about is Alex is worried about the money. So now he said, you guys have the power, city council, please. Again, he didn't answer Marty's question. When is it going to get fixed? I heard Tom ask another question. Why don't we do what the other cities are doing? This is not rocket science. It's very, honestly, I don't know why this is all technical programming up to Ryan Johansson. I mean, there's kiosks everywhere. Like Marty said, you can throw in 50 cents, and then if you use a credit card, you pay later. It sounds like it's programming of the kiosks. F45 businesses that open at early in the morning, my customers, I open at 7 a.m. If I go to a class at 7:30 in the morning, I have to get out of my class and go pay that meter at 8 a.m. because if I put $1.50 in at 7:30, it's only going to give me an hour until 8:30 in the morning. These are technical issues. Again, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science, okay? So to say we're going to let all these businesses and an entire community suffer while we gather data because Alex just got back from vacation from being away for 2 weeks is not okay. It's just not okay. Tom and Marty, I can only imagine how much pressure you guys are feeling because I am feeling it from the merchants in the neighborhood. And again, I'm wondering, why am I the only one here? And what I'm finding out is because people don't want to bother with you, because you don't care about them, because they feel like you don't care about them.
Direct your comments to the council,
Okay.
please.
Sure, council. The staff doesn't care about the city. The police, when the stabbing happened, I was told that it was an oversight, that there was blood left in front of Neelam Market, that it was an oversight. But there was also police tape left on 2 different poles, one in front of the Starbucks
We're on the meter.
building.
We're on meters.
Oh, right. What I'm talking about is the general lack of care for the community. We're on the meters, and all I'm hearing from staff is money, money, money. So what we're going to start doing is if we're financially right now all losing money. The people that are pro meters, not one single merchant has said my revenue has increased. Tom, I'm going to tell you why there's the parking lots are full. I discovered it. It's a new revelation. So when the parking meters end in the lots at 6 p.m., the residents fill them. There's nobody going downtown. Stop talking about money.
Next speaker, please.
The other speaker card I have is for Donna Silvestri. Okay, I have no others.
My name's Adolfo. I barely come up here. You guys are all useless to me. You know what I mean? Marty and Tom, you guys are the best ones. 3 on the left, you guys suck. The city manager sucks. He's all about money. I heard Marty say in the in town hall meeting saying it's not about money. I just heard this guy say it's all about money. Like, this is what it's all about. You guys don't make decisions of what you guys see about your people. You guys make decisions what benefits you guys. So this is what the town of San Bruno is about. You guys suck, period.
Okay, we've heard from the public. There are no other public comments. I don't know if staff has anything to add or has added enough at this time. Okay. As far as us benefiting, nobody financially that sits up here who makes $448 a month is benefiting from the meters. None of us. As far,
Mr. Mayor?
Hold on.
Okay, go ahead.
Please. So what I'm hearing, and I also want to, but I want to turn to my colleagues just to hear from them. And then I had some stuff just about what I'm hearing back too from the community. So anyway, Councilmember Alvarez, and thank you for pausing so the public could speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do support Councilmember Martin Medina on agendizing this topic, but on the other hand, I think it's too soon because the staff has a strong point on gathering data and how we can't just change the system and the policy in one day. It took us how many months since last year to develop this policy and this program, and I think the staff is making a good point on gathering data and then getting more information from our neighboring city. The best way, because if we change the program right now, 2 months later, we're still going to receive complaints from the merchant and the residents. Then how do we base changing them every two months or so? I think gathering more information, like from the original policy or program that we develop would be a good idea, but I don't deny having this agendized. I think it's a good idea to find where we're missing and how we can improve the program.
Oh, sure. Vice Mayor.
So, I've heard a few different concerns, and in fact, some of the concerns that I've heard come up were questions that I asked when we first approved this. I said, why are we doing Sunday when nobody else does Sunday? And I said, why are we going to 8 o'clock when everybody else goes to 6 o'clock? And at the time, staff was very clear that the parking study that was done said that the problem that we were trying to solve extends through 8 p.m. and it extends through Sunday, and so the data showed that if we wanted to fix our problem, that's what we had to do. Initially, I was very skeptical about the meters. I thought they would kill downtown if we put meters in, but I was proven wrong. It actually seems to be working, and we've gotten some positive feedback. I think that question about, what is the minimum amount that we can charge and not break the program is it's an interesting question, but I agree that it's not a simple question. And I think trying to force a study session is probably not the best way to go about this, because when we do study sessions, it's usually because staff has a number of alternatives for us to consider, and they want to present them to us and then have us opine on where we stand. But I don't think trying to force staff to come up with a solution that doesn't exist is really fair to staff, and it's not really going to solve the problem. From what I mean, I understand that maybe for some people paying $1 to go downtown is a lot. I mean, I don't know what the minimum is if they go to the parking lots. Is it still? It's still $1. So. I mean, when we looked at this, we looked at the transaction cost, and $1 seemed like it would $1.50 on the street, and $1 for. So, at a minimum, if you want to go downtown, you have to shell out $1 to do your shopping, and maybe that's not the right number, but I think a key component when we looked at this for the council was that we wanted to make sure that the program could pay for itself, and it wasn't a burden on the general fund and on the taxpayers. We've heard a lot of the merchants come forward and ask that we spend any additional surplus revenue on downtown, and the way it's looking right now, it's a break-even proposal, and the more we limit it, the more restrictions we put on it, the less likely it is to generate any revenue, even to break even. And so because of that, I think I agree with Councilmember Alvarez in that the timing is not right, although I do think we need to address that minimum amount. It would be interesting to know how other cities can do it, and if their cost model is different, are they getting revenue from other sources, and so they take a loss on parking? That's possible, but it would be good to know that whole picture before we're asked to make another analysis. So,
Stop.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I will see if the police chief has anything to add.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think the only context I might be able to help to provide based on the topic tonight, which is whether or not to have a study session, would be to help illustrate just the fact that while council obviously feels a need here to consider this pressing issue for downtown, I just don't want it to be thought that it's not already being considered. Staff, especially the police department, is looking at the data on a very regular basis, even though we have not passed through this sort of incubation period that I warned about when we talked about starting this program, that we would have this sticker shock period where our ability to assess the data objectively is compromised by an understandably upset community based upon what the city manager already articulated, which is change is hard, especially when change comes with a dollar amount assigned to it. But nonetheless, we are looking at the data on a continual basis, and I have walked downtown with 2 of you. I have spoken to all 5 of you at one point or another about what the concerns in the community are, and staff is attempting to balance those concerns with the long-term fiscal viability of this program for the city, with the greater good in mind. And a shorter-term option is one of the more universal requests of both supporters and detractors of this program, which is why we're considering it very seriously. I don't think that an action on the part of council at this point is necessary for that to be considered. What is necessary is for staff to do the hard work that is not popular, which is to evaluate this decision based upon more than the anecdotal asks of people downtown, because there is a bigger picture there. The one example I will give, we talk about the fiscal viability, but what about the behavioral change? This program was installed specifically to create behavioral change in parking. Right now, while early in the data, I can unequivocally tell you it is achieving that behavioral change. It is driving longer-term parkers to the lots, increasing turnover and available parking on the downtown street, which is exactly what it is designed to do. It is possible and difficult to assess whether or not this will be true, that offering a shorter-term parking time on the avenue could reverse that productive outcome that you're currently experiencing. It could. I'm not saying it would, but I'm saying analysis is required for us to actually be able to quantify and say we think it will or we think it won't. So If a study session is necessary for council to get there, certainly at the police department end, we will support that. But I can assure you that we are looking at this literally as we speak. I'm talking to the captain about the programming capabilities. What does it take to pass along transaction fees on certain transactions and not on others? All the things that we're talking about being able to do to account for the fiscal viability of the program and accommodating a shorter term. All of that said, the one challenge I will give to you is that I don't actually think what we're asking for is a shorter term to park. We're asking for cheaper parking. Because if I gave 20 minutes and made it $1.50, it's not going to appease the community. It's not that we actually want 20 minutes instead of an hour, it's that we don't want to spend $1.50 to park on the street. And recall that $1.50 began this at near the bottom end of the range we discussed for parking downtown to make this financially viable. So at the end of the day, I just want us to be honest with ourselves that that's what we're talking about. We're talking about making parking cheaper. We're not really talking about the fact that people only want 20 minutes, because if you view the $1.50 as $1.50 for up to an hour of parking, then we're in pretty safe ground as we stand now. What we're talking about is wanting to give people a cheaper option to park for whatever period of time they want to park down there. In this case, we're talking shorter for coffee shops and some of those places. So there's just a lot of policy implications there that would be nice for staff to be able to continue considering. And again, we were very, very honest. I understand that now we're in this sort of panic period, but we were honest that we needed a minimum of 3 and more like 6 to 9 months of looking at what this does before we should make any policy adjustment decisions. And I'm going to stand by that, meaning that we can make recommendations to you now, but then we're going to have to own those decisions if they create negative unintended consequences. And we'll be making those decisions without all the information that we could have.
Thank you. No, I'm sorry, Councilman Medina. I just wanted to see if you had anything to offer.
So it wasn't my preference to have to be here to call for a study session. It was kind of like an obvious, like as the program was being rolled out, and then, okay, so you can't get 20 minutes. And it's like, for 50 cents. So I will stand by what I said. I don't think it's all about our community wanting lower rates. You could charge 50 cents and it doesn't have to be just limited to on the street. It could be in the back parking lots that you pay your 50 cents and you get the hour perhaps in the back, in the parking lots, because that's how it is now, but you have to pay for the full hour. You can't just take 30 minutes for 50 cents. That's the price point right now, right? In the parking lots. It's $1 for 2 hours. Well, a lot of people don't need 2 hours when they're shopping. All along the 500 block, you have the Mexicana Market, you have the Napa Auto Store, you have Rico Pan, and you have Starbucks across the street, and then these are, and the liquor store. So all those stores there, you couldn't spend 2 hours in all 4 of them if you were going to try to really stretch your time. So I understand the amount of additional time. So my question is, how close are we to the solution? What is the problem? Is it the banks won't, what's the issue? I've heard different things from different staff. So I just want to make sure, like, so there'll be another week that we need to get another answer. Like, I think we will benefit our community by sharing the information that we have, because when information is shared, the people are more assured, like, okay, there was a social media post that explained what was happening. And I think that helps pacify, well, they're working on it. But what about the short-term parking was the next question then. So that's kind of where it is. Hearing there are some people that are saying, well, I'm not going to shop there anymore. And it's like, well, that's unfortunate, because our downtown businesses are really, really good at what they do. And, well, I can go to Lucky's, and it's like, well, Lucky's is on the other side of town. Well, I can go to Millbrae, and it's like, well, that's over there. And it's like the answer to why can't I put 50 cents in at whatever rate that is, and not reducing the rate, just reducing the time. So they feel like, okay, that sandwich now isn't $1.50 more, it's 50 cents more. I think our residents are willing to pay. I don't think they're just complaining like, well, why do we have to do it this way?
No, your mic was stuck.
I forgot.
So for me, it comes back to what I was saying earlier about how this one aspect of the program is unique. It is unique to San Bruno, and that's the part I don't understand. And what I worry about, I'm going to just put all my cards on the table. What I worry about is that when we worked out the financial implications of all of this and you know how the whole thing would work, is that charging $1.50 on the street, that knowing that lots of people only need to run into Mexicana to pick up a couple of items and then leave again, that spot's going to turn over and we're going to get another $1.50 for 20 more minutes, and then we'll get another $1.50 for the next 20 minutes, and now we've made $4.50 for that hour. I don't want to believe that was the math that was used to get to our numbers, and I really hope it wasn't. But if it wasn't, then there has to be a reason why I can put 50 cents into a meter and park in Burlingame, or I can do that in South San Francisco, because I can do that in both of those places. And I'm totally fine with having credit card minimums. It makes 0 sense to me for us to lose money on any parking transaction. So I am not advocating for that and never have. But I really want to make sure that we are talking to our neighbors and figuring out how they are able to do it. I really don't believe that South San Francisco is losing money when somebody parks for 50 cents downtown. I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it. And maybe they are, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, and we'll go. But we haven't. From the conversations I've had with staff, it doesn't seem like we've asked the question. So that's why, and you know, as has been said, we're getting a lot of heat for it because we go out in the community, and when they ask to talk to us, we go and listen. And so we're getting a lot of heat about it, and that's, and so that's why I'm here. And I don't want to minimize the fact that I know it's work to go and figure it out. I know that it was a ton of work to bring the program forward. It was a ton of work to fix all of the growing pains from the first day with the broken meters and other things and all that. And there's all kinds of things that still need to be addressed, and I understand that. All of my attention right now is just on this short-term piece. There's all kinds of other pieces. On Sunday morning, I volunteered at the American Legion. I had to be there at 7:30 to start cooking bacon. I use the app to pay. But I'm also cheap, and I needed to be there for 2 hours, so I parked in the nearest lot, which is up by Atlas, so it's 2 blocks away. So I parked at Atlas, or the city lot next to Atlas, lot 7, whichever one that is. Went to go pay as I'm walking. I can't, because it's 7:30, and you don't have to pay till 8. So I set an alarm on my watch to 8 o'clock, I better pay. And then, of course, I have new plates on my car, and I forgot my number, so I had to walk the 2 blocks back at 8 o'clock. But it's the same kind of idea. If I wasn't somebody who was using the app and I had to use the kiosk, I would have had to leave and walk back at 8 o'clock to use the kiosk to pay. If I wasn't tech savvy to use my phone, or in this case, too dumb to remember my license plate. So, those are things that will need to be addressed. But I'm not asking for that today. I'm only asking for us to look at this short-term piece because it's really hurting us a lot. I'll stop.
And I wouldn't say you're stupid because I still don't know my license plate, so I have to take a picture. I think is what are we trying to achieve with a study session? And it says a study session for revisions to the parking enforcement and parking kiosk fees. So I get it. I think what I'm hearing, and the one thing that I think that I have heard, because I have heard from business owners are like, hey, I think 7 days. I think till 8. It is turning it over. That is happening. I can sense that. I see that. It's just the shorter increments. That's the one thing that I'm hearing is really. So, I mean, and I think we've heard from the chief that that's already being worked on, has been worked on. I don't have the answer to your question, or we don't, as far as have we asked the neighboring city. Maybe that already has been done. Don't know. You might know that better than I. But if that's the one topic that is the crux of all this, because I've heard about Sunday, I've heard about 6 o'clock, I've heard about, but that's changing a lot of nuances. And I'm thinking what I'm hearing here is just the one item, which is, can it be achieved? And I think the chief has said and is saying it's being worked on as we speak. It is being discussed. I think what Councilmember Medina is saying is, okay, I hear it, I appreciate it. So do we have any time frame to that? I've heard the city manager say we've got a budget to deal with, and that is priority, which part of those resources to have them come in and made it sustainable is based on that. So I don't know that we do need a study session because I think it's already been heard what the item is. So why bring us all together to have staff, as you know, was said, to bring us together for something that we're asking for a nuance or an update to understand better so the community and or merchants can hear it. That's all. That's what I'm gathering from our commentary. Chief?
Mr. Mayor, I think maybe just a point of clarification as I'm hearing more clarity here as to what the question is. So at this point, I can tell you what the issue is with the request for shorter term. The issue primarily occurs here when transactions are processed through the QR code or through the app. When you do that, it kicks in an additional processing fee on that transaction that sits somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 cents. So anything up to 50 cents is basically subsidized parking when they're paying through that method. So we keep painting this picture of why can't I walk up to a meter and put in 50 cents? Well, the first thing is understand we didn't do meters, we did kiosks. That's the structure of the program here. So you're not paying for a space, you're paying to park on the street in a zone. And so if you put 50 cents in, the profit model holds up to a certain degree. Now, there's a discussion to be had over whether smaller increments of time should really simply be dividing larger increments of time, or if there should be a price break as you pay for more time, which is typically how this would work. So taking 150 and dividing it by 3, for instance, would not necessarily be what staff would advise if given ample time to come back with recommendations. But that's the core issue to provide clarity that we're trying to figure out every day. We're dealing with legally what can we do in terms of the different transaction price between paying cash versus paying with a credit card, the difference between paying with a credit card through the kiosk versus paying with the QR code in the app. And we're also dealing with a behavioral change desire here. Ultimately, the goal of this program was to get compliance, right? Not to issue a bunch of tickets. And the best way to get compliance is for people to use the app. Why? Because the app will notify you if you're about to run out of parking. So you can charge up what you've paid or go move your car rather than getting an expensive ticket from LAZ or the police department. So if we want to basically push people away from the app because we're providing a transaction level now that doesn't really support the fiscal sustainability if you use the app and want to pay for just 20 minutes, that's a problem. Right? So we're trying to figure out how to overcome that problem, and we're looking at things like, can we pass along that transaction fee to the consumer only when they use that particular method, when they're using the app and a credit card, queuing up this 50-cent charge? Can we pass it along? What are the consequences of that we're not foreseeing? If we tell someone it's 50 cents for 20 minutes and it actually costs you $1.04 because you chose to scan the QR code you were told to scan, how do we explain that to the community we're already having trouble reaching on this topic? what they're gonna do is call the police department and say, I got overcharged over and over again. That's gonna be the feedback. So this is why it's not quite as simple as, when's the deadline, get it done, we want shorter term parking. These are the things staff is actively considering with or without a study session to try to offer a solution. So hopefully that helps to clarify what the actual problem is, why it's not as simple as some of the business owners want to believe that, yeah, technically, can I flip a switch at the police department and change the pricing? Yes. But it's not that simple in terms of the overall structure of the program. I hope that clarifies a little bit.
I think you did an excellent job, and that's why I had said it originally about the transaction fee, because that's what we're getting down to. Yeah. And you said it much better than I. That's the bottom line. If you want to use your coins, can it be modified? I'll use the word modified. Modified so that that isn't happening? I think that you've already said, we're looking into that. We are trying to figure that out. And what are the repercussions? Looking at it as totality, holistically. And so that's why I was saying about the transaction. In essence, it comes to the transaction fee. That's kind of the sticking point here, and I think the chief articulated it well. Councilmember Hamilton.
So I appreciate all of that, and it all makes perfect sense. All I would ask is that, and what I haven't heard is that we are, instead of trying to solve these problems in a San Bruno bubble, we have neighbors who are friendly and will talk to us, including in San Mateo, where they have kiosks downtown. They don't have meters, they have kiosks, and they have a 50-cent minimum for credit cards. And while I understand that for the folks who really just want to park and run into Mexicana and get a couple of groceries and leave, that maybe, yes, we might be pushing them to using coins instead of using the app, and they wouldn't get the benefit of the reminders and all the benefits that you get from using the app. But it's what the people are asking for. And if we can do that and not lose money, then we should be looking at it. And I just, the point I'm trying to make is, I don't want us to, I wouldn't want this effort that we need to get to the end to figure out what our options are to be artificially extended because we're insisting on doing it all on our own, and we're not asking our neighbors how did they do it.
I can probably provide some clarification there as well. So while we've not done a comprehensive check with all our neighbors, we've been communicating with neighbors from the beginning of this program. What we do in policing is plagiarize from everybody else because we can't do anything on our own. The fundamental answer to that question is the same I just gave. It's the app. So even at the kiosk, if you want to pay with a credit card, we're not paying that full 50-cent transaction fee. We can support the lower increment and the lower price point. It's the app that is kicking in this extra cash. And that's not offered in all of our neighboring jurisdictions. The pay through a QR code with the app is not offered everywhere. It was a specific ask as we were building this program to offer that so that we could get better compliance and fewer tickets. If you don't offer the app, you have more tickets because you will not pay attention when you're eating dinner to the fact that your time is about to expire. But if your phone chirps you and says, hey, beware, you're about to get a $50 ticket, you'll probably go take care of that. So it's the app is the main differentiator that means that we can't process that transaction. And right now, again, too early for too much data, but only about 9% of the transactions are occurring through the app. About 90% are occurring via credit card, not cash. But the credit card's fine if it's used at the kiosk, just like if it was used at the meter. So this is part of why I want a little more data, because I tell you that, and your obvious response should be, it's only such a small percent. Let's just do this and get it done already. But maybe that's not going to be the long-term number, that it's going to be that small of a percentage using the app. And most other cities, the case studies there show that with public and time and people learning how to use the app, you get more people using the app. So I just don't want you to be left with the thought that we're trying to do this in a vacuum and that every other city can charge 30 or 50 cents. Broken in the way this program was structured. This program is cookie cuttered from two companies, Laz and T2, that are providing almost all of the kiosk and metering services throughout the Bay Area and around the country. So we didn't reinvent the wheel or do anything terribly strange. We just have a combination of wanting to make parking cheap, you how much more expensive it is, for example, in Santa Cruz, where I spend a lot of my time, and wanting to also now provide a lower increment. A lot of these increments were designed because we knew about the transaction costs and minimums. That's why the lots are the way they are. So I will really caution against shorter-term parking in the lots, because the whole point of the program was to drive longer-term parkers to the lots, not your 15 and 20-minute parkers who want to run into a grocery store. and it's already at $1 for 2 hours. So even if you use 20 minutes, you're at that dollar price point. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure you know that we are checking with the neighboring cities. We have one issue with this short-term deal, and it's the app-based credit card transactions. That's where we're being sort of crippled. And it may be as simple as passing along that transaction fee on just those transactions to the consumer. That's going to create public information issues that I think I already explained, but it technically will work. So that's what we're playing with now.
Thank you for that explanation. Councilmember Medina.
All right. All good and said, but I just wanted to explain, because there's nobody here anymore, but the whole point of being able to have this discussion is only through council comments currently, right? So when I came up with the council comment, I wanted it to be kind of broad because we can talk about more things, not specifically we're going to talk about time intervals, which is really what we're really talking about, right? So now that I've explained it, is it appropriate to I'm asking the city attorney now, is to revise this study session into a discussion or an update, to request an update so that we can share with our community what's going on? Or do I ask the city manager, I think at one point, it was going to be like, yeah, we can ask the chief to give an update, and it's like, okay, great. And it's like, oh, we didn't get the update. And it's like, okay, but that's what I think the public wants to hear. It's like they are working on it, and if we didn't have this discussion tonight, they wouldn't know. It's basically, I'm telling somebody, well, staff's working on it. Well, what are they working on? It's like, well, they're working on it. That's all I can say. Now, if somebody wants to go ahead and play back the meeting minutes or play back the video, they can do it. And we can now share that information. I think the big thing about the app is that not enough people know about it. How are you going to find out about the app? QR codes, thank you, are now on the store, a lot of the doors, but they're still not on the machines, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, well, that's coming, right? So I'll just ask the city manager, can we get an update at the next council meeting on where we are with these things? And I appreciated the response on Facebook and Nextdoor, and could those kind of updates be provided on the website so that people could, not everybody's on Facebook and Nextdoor, thank God, right? So sharing that same information on our website, and then, hey, you can tell the public, take a look at the website, the information's there. Oh, okay. So.
Let me ask, because
Well, hold on a second. I just wanted to ask the city manager, could we get an update at the next council meeting?
Well, hold on. I thought the staff was supposed to be updating the council on a routine basis, and so I'm wondering when that is supposed to be.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask, since you were asking that question.
Okay, well, that's.
I'm trying to read through the questions on what's rhetorical and what's a real question. So Councilmember Medina, at the June 4th, 11th, whatever, the first meeting in June, we can provide an update through a presentation process, but it'll be an update, not a policy conversation, right? I mean, I want to be clear what an update is. I want to make sure we are syncing on what the term update means, and we can say, here's where we are, here's what we're learning, and my fear is some people in the public aren't going to like our update. It's going to still fall flat because why haven't you changed, why haven't you done what we asked you to do? And, you know, with due respect to the audience members who are no longer here, of course it's about the money. My job is to make sure we're balanced. My job is to make sure that we're spending public taxpayers prudently, right? Public taxpayers' money prudently. So I just want to make sure we're not creating an expectation that we're going to turn into a 2-hour policy conversation off of an update. And you're going to get 6 merchants from the downtown coming in, what do they call me? Well, I don't want to ask you to repeat it. I mean, you know, I don't want to be accused of being an idiot again. And I don't want you guys to be accused of being idiots again. So I just want to be mindful of how we structure this in a way that's appropriate, educational, but not turning it into a policy conversation and then a couple of people coming and yelling at you saying, we're not doing our jobs. I can provide you an update in the digest, my council newsletter, city manager newsletter, which is coming out at the end of this week. We can do it through all sorts of different means. I'm not sure the council update is necessarily the best way of communicating with the whole public, because I'm not sure the whole public's watching our meetings, frankly. So if the question is we need to communicate more with the public, let us worry about that then. Let us come up with that scenario or that effort. But if you want us to come and can have the chief come back and with me and decide, give you guys an update on the first meeting in June on where we stand with the downtown parking, I just think it's going to create expectations from the merchants that we're going to be doing something. And my concern is we may not do something. That's all. Because I don't know sitting here today in 2 weeks, can I tell you definitively we're going to do something different? I can't sit here and tell you that. I don't know. And that's my concern, frankly, for you guys, for the 5 of you.
Yeah. No, it's all good. I just want to make sure. So, and that's fine. I mean, otherwise, then how is the public going to know? And then us being able to ask a couple questions, I think that's also helpful as well, that we can provide that additional update. And I totally believe in the transparent nature that we do all our business. I think it's great. People think that things are being done, otherwise, and it's like, no, there's a whole list of meetings that we've been having on this, and unfortunately, you haven't been watching before. So I'd be totally satisfied with the presentation, opportunity to ask a few questions. I don't want these meetings to go any longer than they have to, so I understand that. And expectations, and that's life as a council member. You always have expectations, and just being able to answer the questions is what I'm more interested in. So even though the answers are not always appreciated by everyone. So I'll leave it at that.
I mean, anything else at this time? One thing I do want to say as we continue on with council comments, and I'm going to go back to you, Mr. Medina. I want to thank the police chief, though it's one of those things when you put up your hand and then you regret it later, because this is something you accepted, I'll say the challenge, you accepted the task to get it implemented, and it has probably not been, it has not been the easiest thing to what the department does, what you have to do, and what your staff does for the community. So I want to thank you because I know you do care, and I know you have been working on it. And so thank you. All right, back to you, sir.
I was thinking it'd be best for you to mention about cappuccino. So go ahead. I just want to make sure it was going to happen, but
yeah.
All right, good.
Marty, I'm sorry. Councilman Medina, I was going to wear my cappuccino green sports jacket, but I thought maybe it wouldn't be the best thing to do.
Oh, you should have.
But I thought of it. So anyway, cappuccino, a couple things. Just on the cappuccino, then I'll go right back because I had more stuff. Obviously, in softball and baseball, they have made great achievements this season. You've got to be proud. I don't know if it's the new fields. I don't know if it's the coaching staff. I'm sure it's the team. But Councilmember Medina is correct that if you've been reading, they are finishing their year and their seasons on a phenomenal note and making some history. So thank you for letting me do that.
And that history is both CCS champions, the boys, the first time ever. The girls, 6 times.
Yes.
But clearly, both at the same time. I mean,
that might be history too.
And I'll share this with everyone here. We invited the San Bruno Lions invited the boys and girls baseball, softball teams to be the grand VIP guests so that we can give them a ticker tape parade. So there you go. We're waiting to hear back from them.
I do have some stuff, and I'm going to ramble. I want to say that I attended the Power the Pulse, which is the new AED units that were placed at Commodore, City Park, and Lions Field, but the fire department did, and they did on-site training. On May 20th, it was in the Digest, but the mayor of South San Francisco, Milbrae, and myself, along with city staff, with the MTC Commissioner, Gina Pappin, met with BART staff to look and discuss the fare gates and the plans for the funding through the grants. For the part of San Mateo County, it is $10.3 million for these gates. They're about $125,000 each. City of San Bruno, to have our gates done at our station, is at $1.6 million. They are, when I say they as BART, are saying, well, we're not asking the cities, but that's not how we heard it. So that is why we had a group meeting to walk it with BART, and the assistant city manager was there, so, and to express that this is what's causing our stations the challenges to our departments, the overtime, and where they can't focus on other resources. So we are still working on that, and they are looking to grants, but that was a needed meeting with the three communities that were there. On May 22nd, attended the IB Science Showcase, and also attended the community open house. The IB Science programs, I was impressed and felt I obviously didn't reach their level when I was at CAP, I don't think. On the 25th, attended and spoke at the Golden Gate Cemetery for the dedication of the grave sites by the Scouts and volunteers. Even with the weather, there were hundreds and hundreds, and it was impressive. They got it all done, which some of us who went to the Golden Gate Cemetery on the 27th witnessed, and which adds to the beauty. And then today I attended a press conference in Burlingame with State Senator Josh Becker for support to restore grade separation money that was in the budget that's been taken out of the budget. And it affects 3 cities, but keep in mind what it did for San Bruno, so I wanted to offer our support to them. I said earlier that the fire chief and I were at Portola, and just as to know, I talked to my colleagues when it happened, but there's probably more youth or maybe more adults that maybe had effects that we were hearing from the parents and lines of communication, and there were 2 board members up there, much of the sheriff's department from San Francisco, and all training has been put on pause and hold for now. A lot of a reevaluation, current investigation, and the chief reached out just as far as our communication. So it was something that I thought was important, and there were a lot of great questions from the parents and concerns, of course, and from the community around. So it's, again, taking a bigger picture, but they did have information both in English and Spanish available for questions and answers, but mostly the folks that were there wanted to ask the questions. And I'll get updated more, and the superintendent was there, and the principal, the interim principal. And we talked about CAP Sports, so thank you. And then obviously want to offer everyone a best wishes as you embark upon your next chapter, and in that, with the happy graduation as it embarks on this week for many in the community and surrounding areas. So happy graduation to everybody. As last item, there was Raul, who obviously attends here. We were notified that he unfortunately had passed away. And to find out a little background, he was a U.S. veteran. After leaving the service, he earned a living working as an air conditioner in the air conditioning, and then his real calling came after hours in the professional master of ceremony for famous comics and the director of the Children's Opera Choir. 33 years ago, he came here. He was greeted by Bessie Bond. I knew Bessie Bond, and fell in love with this center and all its activities, from bingo to being the MC with the dazzling outfits and that voice in the anniversary parties and the holiday parties. Entertained at local retirement centers, something he loved to do. Hosted dances at the senior center on Sundays. Hosted monthly birthday dinners at local residents. Participated almost every day on the lunch program. He was also an excellent chef, and he helped to raise money for the senior center programs and activity by actively being involved in the nonprofit bingo at the senior center on how it supports.
and he was that voice that actually called out the numbers. So it is with sadness that many of the seniors will miss him. And one of the things that I know, I was told that he wanted to come back to the center as he was ill and come back to the place he loved. It didn't happen, but his memory lives on. His heart is a part of the city and a part of the center. So with that, if we can have a moment and adjourn in his memory, honor, and thanks to his contribution. Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for being here. Please, everybody, get home safe. And the next regular city council meeting will be held on June 11, 2024 at 7 o'clock. Meeting adjourned.